Popcorn Poops is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/popcornpoops. Audible.com has over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you, the listeners of Popcorn Poops, the opportunity to check out their service. Today, we're recommending the book Easy Rider's Raging Bulls, How the Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll Generation Saved Hollywood by Peter Biskin, narrated by Dick Hill. To download this or another free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/popcornpoops. Again, that's audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for your free audiobook.
My name is Jessica.
And my name is Dustin. We are the Popcorn Poops. Here at Popcorn Poops HQ, we produce a movie podcast and commentary track hybrid that may be synced up to whatever film we're talking about or enjoyed as a standalone audio program.
Today we will be watching the 2012 film Marvel's The Avengers, directed by Joss Whedon. If you are syncing this recording up to the movie, go ahead and start the film and then press pause as soon as the flipping comic book pages in the Marvel logo become completely red and are no longer visible.
It's time to start the movie. Syncers, press play at the beat after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1... And I have to go ahead and apologize for that messiness in our intro about the syncing. The opening of this movie has the Marvel logo and the Paramount logo not fading away or cutting out, but instead like...
transforming into this?
Yeah, transforming into the insides of the Tesseract, which now now the other is talking about the character of the other. So it wasn't really easy. That was the best way I could think to word it, is when the flipping comic book pages turn to complete red and you can't discern the fact that there's any movement in the comic book pages anymore, that's when you should press pause. So if you have to go back and redo that, I apologize, but that's the best I could come up with. But this is your pick for the week.
It is my pick.
And this is Marvel's The Avengers, or
Yes.
just The Avengers. The official title being Marvel's The Avengers, which I think is clunky and terrible, and I hate it. But it's official, so I have to say it that way. But
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, it's Geek Rage. It's been building for 28 years.
Yeah, I can see.
So this is a great movie. This is kind of the culmination of how many years? I guess 2008 was when The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man came out. Those were the first films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know them now. And this came out in 2012. So like four or 5 years of work, something like that.
Yeah.
And this happened. And I'm sure I'll say this multiple times throughout this show, but it's kind of a miracle that this happened and happened at the level of success that it happened at.
Well, I mean...
it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, well, the thing that still always astonishes me, that it's still, I mean, it's been how many years? 2 years since this movie came out, and I am still kind of in awe at how famous Joss Whedon is now. Not that he wasn't before. Of course he was, because
Right.
he did Serenity and he did Buffy, but he was still like cult geek, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like
a cult icon,
right?
a geek icon, yeah,
you know,
definitely.
when you talk about like Whedon speak and stuff like that, like it was a cult kind of thing, and now he's just exploded because of this movie.
Yeah.
And that still is kind of hard for me to process.
Yeah.
It's still weird for me to try and think in popular terms of who Joss Whedon is
like
now.
he's mainstream now.
Yeah.
He sold out. I liked his
He
underground
did
stuff
not-
better.
He did not sell out.
I'm just kidding. I'm not that guy.
Anyways, of course I was bound to love this movie because it's directed by Joss Whedon and it's an ensemble cast,
And
which
I allowed you to pick this, although I've been trying to avoid like doing multiple movies that have like I don't even like doing movies like within the same couple of years, but we've kind of been felt like we've been stuck in the same like 10-year time span from the 80s,
which is
you know,
part of
into
why
the
I wanted to
90s.
do something really recent.
Yeah, exactly. But my only trepidation with this film is that we already did the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, which is written by Joss Whedon and is a franchise that, you know, was his
but
baby.
he didn't direct direct it.
He didn't direct it, so I guess I can allow it. And
we haven't done a comic book movie yet.
That's true.
That's like a big thing now, which is again really weird. Still,
they are the biggest movies right now. They are
still.
The geek has truly inherited
the earth. Yeah. Well, I was doing some research like I never do on like highest grossing film franchise stuff, which is stuff I really don't care about. But the reason I did it is because the Marvel Cinematic Universe now is the second highest grossing film franchise of all time.
After Star Wars?
After Harry Potter.
Oh, that makes sense.
Do you want to hear the list? I'll give you the top 10. Number 1 is Harry Potter.
Okay.
Number 2 is the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sure.
3 is Bond.
Okay.
James Bond. 4 is the Middle Earth series. Series.
Lord of the Rings and
including
The
Hobbit.
Sure.
5 is Star Wars.
Oh my God.
6 is Spider-Man. 7 Batman. 8 Transformers.
Well, okay. Give it 10 more years, and Star Wars is going to climb that list with
with the new stuff
stuff coming out and all the standalone films. Disney's about to make a ton of money off of that.
9 is Pirates. 10 is Shrek.
Well, can't win them all.
And 11 is Twilight.
We should do one of those movies for popcorn.
We totally should. Oh God. But this is second only to the Harry Potter series, which
wow, that's amazing.
Which has more movies in it. Yes. Still
not anymore.
Not
Harry
anymore.
Potter is 8 films. Man, I'd have to count them, and that's boring for a podcast for me to count all these movies.
Anyway,
but I believe there are more than 8 films in
now,
the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Where we are now,
there are certainly more Marvel movies altogether.
Yes, but we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is this world that has been created. I want to talk about the phases. So there was Phase 1, which is Avengers Assembled, is the title for Phase 1 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this movie here is the climax, the culmination, I guess is the better word, of Phase 1. Phase 1 includes Iron Man, that's the first, then The Incredible Hulk, then Iron Man 2, then Thor, then Captain America, the first Avenger, and now here, Marvel's The Avengers. And of course, it's, aptly titled Avengers Assembled because it is, all of those movies are about getting the Avengers together.
That was actually the title of this movie in the UK.
Was Avengers Assembled?
Partially to distinguish it from the famous Avengers franchise in the UK that's kind of a spy-fi series. Oh. There was a movie some years back with Uma Thurman and Ralph Fiennes and Sean Connery. But before that, years ago, I think in the 60s, it was a television series, which was huge in the UK, of course. So, just to set it apart a little bit more.
But now in today, where we are like right now in 2014, we are actually now in Phase 2. Phase 2 is only titled Phase 2, as far as I know.
I guess.
But it includes Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the last movie in Phase 2 will be next year in the spring, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yep. And you know what? The amazing thing is the movies are still getting better.
Yeah,
they're getting better.
They absolutely are.
And better.
I mean, we just saw Galaxy. Japan, of course, was the last country to get Galaxy.
Of course.
Of course. So we just saw it a couple weeks ago, and
it's great.
It was wonderful.
Is it your favorite Marvel movie
of the
now?
year? Of the year,
it's your favorite movie of the year. Okay.
But I don't know. I think I still like Avengers better. Maybe.
Really?
I don't know. That's hard. I need to watch Guardians again. And
I think Avengers is better than Guardians of the Galaxy. My new favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
it's
that
just
was really
amazing.
great.
Yeah,
it was
great.
Really great. So, I mean, considering that the last two that they've done were outstanding, and I will say, I'm sure we'll talk about this more as this movie goes on, but neither of us are really fans of the Thor movies. I think we both consider them the least of the Marvel.
I wish I were a
universe.
bigger fan of them, but they don't do the things that I feel like they need to do to win me over.
Yeah, and that's really, to me, it's actually heartbreaking because it is the fantasy storyline in this world, and I'm an easy sell for that, and so it's.
I mean,
really,
I am too. High fantasy is high
for me.
fantasy, and I think the story itself would be fine if they were a bit more reliant on like the kind of things that the Thor movies tend to reference, which are like those cheap '80s, science fiction and fantasy movies that
Yeah.
use like all practical effects and really bad makeup and really bad costumes and all that kind of stuff. They want to be those movies, but at the same time, they're just so loaded down with CG elements and just shot almost entirely on green screen that visually they really look like a Star Wars prequel to me.
Yeah.
And that just puts a bad taste in my mouth.
They do.
So-
And for me, of course, my big problem with them is unfortunately the romance, the love interest and the storyline there, I think is just
Don't even get me started
just
on Natalie Portman's part in Thor 2.
Oh my God,
Good
she sleeps
grief.
for half the movie. Our heroine sleeps for half the movie. Sleeping Beauty all over again. I thought we learned our lesson.
The
Oh,
queen.
God, I'm not going to go into
Odin's
it right now.
wife is more of a heroine than
She is.
than Natalie Portman's character in that movie.
Whatever. Anyways, I'm extremely sad about them because I love Thor. I really love Thor. I think he is hilarious. I love him in this movie. One of the reasons I love this movie so much is it presents Thor in the way that I want Thor to be presented. It shows him. And with Iron Man and stuff, with Tony Stark making jokes about him being Shakespeare in the park and all that stuff. Oh God, I love it.
Well, it shows
I love it.
shows Thor in my favorite context of Thor. I was never a huge Thor fan growing up. Like I read comic books. I would never even say that I was like a really big comic book fan. I knew some of the lore and I had some of the comic books. And even when I got older, I went back and read some of the more popular, I guess, collected works. The what are they called? Trade paperbacks. And Thor's stories never really touched me in any particular way. I didn't really ever care for them all that much unless he was interacting with the Avengers or other people from Earth. I guess it's kind of strange that the first Thor movie didn't work for me because as far as the comic books go, I always like Thor in that fish out of water element the best. Which a lot of people don't like. I get that. They want to see Thor fighting big monsters and stuff, which is fun.
Right.
I mean, that's
and I
good
think
too,
both of
but-
those are cool. Like,
yeah.
but they gave us both, and I didn't feel like they did either one very well. However, though, my whole point was I think Dark World is better than the first movie.
I agree. It's more entertaining.
At least slightly better than the first movie.
Yeah, I would say slightly. Better.
So excluding the Thor movies, I think most of these movies are pretty fantastic, especially recently. We have missed
We
most
missed
of this
we missed a
opening.
lot of the
All of-
opening, which is maybe for the best because
neither
I
of us are.
I don't think this opening's very good. Loki just escaped in a pickup truck.
He did. However, though, do you think it's any better than the deleted scene opening, which had Agent Hill talking to the World? What's it called? World
Something Council.
World Security Council.
Yeah, the secret people behind the scenes, the people that basically control Shield.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that was any better?
It's certainly more exciting, but I don't.
I almost feel like they just. I don't know. It's like they couldn't figure out how to start it exactly right, and
We are 11 minutes into the movie, and we are now seeing the titles and hearing the theme for the first time by Alan Silvestri.
which I love.
I think it's a great theme.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
it's probably his best work since Back to the Future.
Yeah,
he
it's
he
really
has
great.
not done anything quite as memorable as Back to the Future. I don't think it's as good as Back to the Future's overture, but it's probably the best thing he's done since.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. Definitely gives you that "let's get together and fight the world"
Yeah.
kind of feeling,
Yeah,
which is exactly
It's-
what you want.
It's just about as epic. It's him. He doesn't go quite so John Williams as he did in Back to the Future, which I feel was probably a situation where Robert Zemeckis sat down and he said, "Okay, Alan, I want you to go full John Williams. Give me all you've got." And he probably just hit him on the right day, got him in the right mood, and Silvestri's like, "I'm not going to let you down." And he didn't, and he wrote one of the greatest film overtures of all time. He doesn't quite hit those levels with the Avengers theme, but I still like
think
it.
it's
I think
pretty
it's
good,
good.
though.
It's pretty good.
So we already when I mentioned Agent Hill very briefly because she was in the original deleted scene opening that is not in this movie. But anyways, when she first shows up, or when we see her do some action stuff, she's one of the first one who kicks any butt, or at least avoids having her butt kicked or something like that. She rolls out of the way and is agile, and you're like, whoa, cool. Yeah. And that's your first hint that we are in a Whedon world, and in a Whedon world, women are not to be underestimated. And this scene right here I just love it because we just jump right into it. And one of the things I love about this scene is that I think it's almost, in a way, I think it's a callback to the very first Buffy episode. Do you know what I'm getting at?
No, but please explain.
Okay,
I'm trying to remember what happens.
In the very beginning of the very first Buffy episode, we see a guy and a girl, high school students presumably, sneak into a high school.
Oh, right.
And the girl's really scared and timid, and the guy's like, "It's okay, babe," and she's like, "I think I hear something," and he's like, "No, nobody's here, babe. It's cool." And you're like, "Oh God, something's gonna happen. There's gonna be some evil monster," and it turns out she's the evil monster. The scared little girl is playing him, and she's the vampire, and she kills the guy. Immediately, we are given the information that if you underestimate a woman in the Whedon world, then you're gonna pay for it.
Not only that, but it's a running theme that there are women in Whedon's universes that take advantage
of that underestimation.
Right, take advantage of the perception that
which
a
is
woman
exactly
is
what
she does right
Natasha
now.
Romanoff is doing in this scene, which is why I love that parallel, because she does the exact same thing. We get our opening, and the first thing we see is a woman who's pretending to be in a troublesome situation, but then she gets a phone call and she's like, "I'm working," and then she just proceeds to kick all of their asses. And I love that Coulson is on the phone just waiting, like with the grunting in the background.
This is a cool sequence. There are shots in this movie, and you can even see them in this scene right here. But there are some really like artsy fartsy shots in the Avengers movie.
like the motorcycle mirror one toward the end with Captain.
I'll bring it up when it comes up. But yeah, there's a shot where you see Captain America stand up from this little skirmish he gets in, and it's like the scene is basically reflected in a broken motorcycle mirror.
Yeah.
It's really artsy. There were some shots in that fight sequence right there where basically the camera was just turned on its side and all of the action was happening. Like, it was a really quick cut, but all the action was happening like vertically instead of horizontally in the frame. Strange choices for a big movie like this, but
we already got some of what I think is the reason why this movie is so fantastic. Is we already got some of the great character development rolling already with Natasha, right, where we learned that, and I feel like it almost gets lost a little later. She, unfortunately, I feel like her character is not very well developed in this movie, and Hawkeye's isn't either. And it's just honestly, time. It's just time.
It is, and honestly, they do. I think they do as good a job they can
as they possibly can. I think so too. I totally agree. However, I didn't love Black Widow's character until I saw Winter Soldier.
This shot coming up right here was our hint on our social media, where it's right here, this shot.
Yes, with the guys watching TV with the goats.
Pretty tricky one. That was a tricky shot. I don't think anybody guessed it from the screenshot. Some people guessed it from the quote, but yes, every week we put up a screenshot and a quote to allow you to try to guess the movie we're going to do
on Twitter or
on
the
Facebook
page.
So,
yeah. So Natasha, what was I getting? Oh, Black Widow. I didn't really love her until Winter Soldier, and then her character made sense to me.
She becomes a character,
and I really understood her. And he's about Peter. Banner's about to do something.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner, sorry, is about to do something here that I'm waiting for him to do it.
But
anyways, though, so Natasha is, I really loved her character after Winter Soldier.
Well, she becomes a character, and I think that in this she's given the basic motivations that she needs to operate as a character, and it's kind of a mantra. She says it a couple of times. She doesn't say it in Iron Man 2 when she is introduced as a character, but her thing is, I think it's Iron Man 2. Yeah, that's it, that she's introduced.
Oh, right, because she's like his assistant or something like at some point.
But her mantra in this movie, her motivation is that she has red in her ledger that she wants wiped out.
But in that first scene, I feel like the information we get is the reason she's doing this is not even for that at this point. The reason is for Hawkeye. Is that she specifically is
right now? Yes,
right now she specifically is in it to save Hawkeye.
Exactly, and when
she
Hawkeye,
owes him.
Well, I mean, but here's
the moment. Look,
that's part of her red. You see,
where he says the line that he doesn't get what he wants every time, something like that, and then he kind of touches the crib there.
Yeah.
That
was that Mark Ruffalo's little.
Well, that was something when I was listening to the commentary track on the DVD. Whedon mentioned it, and I don't think it was even directed in. It was just something that he did. I think he does an incredible job with.
Oh, he
this
does
role.
such a good job,
and it's because of the little things like that.
Yeah. Like my whole life, I've been thinking, and this is actually something I wanted to bring up, but this is kind of loosely based on Mark Millar's The Ultimates series, which is kind of a reboot of the Avengers that started in the year 2000. And the one character that makes that really apparent is Nick Fury, who actually was modeled after Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson himself gave permission to Marvel to use his likeness and to model Nick Fury in The Ultimates way back, 14 years ago when Mark Millar was doing the series after himself. So they recreated Nick Fury as an African-American character who had traditionally been a Caucasian character. And in that series, there's a little conversation where they talk about who would play them in a movie if there was ever a movie. They're just like talking over pizza or something. And of course, Nick Fury says that his character would, of course, be played by Samuel L. Jackson, but they also cast Brad Pitt as Captain America, Johnny Depp as Tony Stark, Matthew McConaughey as Ant-Man, who is not in this movie but was in an earlier draft of the movie but had to be cut out because there were already too many characters, and Lucy Liu as Wasp, or Hank Pym, Ant-Man's wife. Also, David Hasselhoff played Nick Fury.
Yeah. I'll talk about...
In a 1998 made-for-TV movie, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I have a quote.
Okay, give me the quote.
So, but before I give the quote, the Nick Fury line, he says, "Mr. Samuel L. Jackson, of course, no discussion," is how he says it specifically. And that was one of the reasons that line in the comic. I'm not a big comic book person. I haven't read a lot of comic books, but I actually did read a few issues of the Ultimates. And because of that line, when I saw Samuel L. Jackson in the little teaser at the end of, I guess it was at the end of the first Iron Man, that's when I really started getting excited, was because of that. But anyway, so the David Hasselhoff thing, I found an article about him talking about Samuel L. Jackson in this movie, and he said, "I didn't see the Avengers yet. I love Sam Jackson, but my Nick Fury was the organic Nick Fury that was written and discussed with Stan Lee before anyone got in there to change it. Nick Fury was written to be tongue-in-cheek and has a cigar in his mouth. He was a tough guy, cool." And at first I was kind of like rolling my eyes and I was kind of feeling like it's a little silly because if you just look at the poster, we haven't seen
we're going to have to track it down.
Nick Fury.
It's something I want to see.
Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. David Hasselhoff movie, but
because I'm a glutton for punishment.
But I can't expect it to be very good.
No. Can't be.
And so like him getting kind of pissy about it, I think is funny. But then I sort of felt bad for him because in the article he starts talking about how Stan Lee said he was the ultimate Nick Fury, and the guys who bought the movie, which is the same guy who owns the Spider-Man franchise.
Avi Arad.
Whatever his name is. Like he said that he told David Hasselhoff that he'd be Nick Fury forever, and David Hasselhoff makes this comment where he says, "They lied, but that happens to me all the time. That's when you realize life isn't fair." And I just started feeling really bad for David Hasselhoff.
Hasselhoff's always got Germany. He's fine. I said all that stuff about the casting in Mark Millar's Ultimates, like the casting, Hollywood actors conversation in that thing, to say that I think they mentioned Steve Buscemi as like a possibility for Bruce Banner. And, in my mind, that's like always been kind of the perfect choice, is kind of this weird looking little weaselly dude that spends all his time in a lab, and he's pasty, and, he doesn't have any muscle mass or anything. And so the transformation into the Hulk is that much more drastic by contrast. But then they throw somebody like Mark Ruffalo in there, and I thought Edward Norton was a good choice when they cast him because he's kind of small, and you can see that the difference there. But Mark Ruffalo is kind of a big dude. Like he looks like not like he's buff or anything like that, but he's stocky. Like
yeah,
he looks like an average built guy. He doesn't look terribly geeky. He doesn't look terribly anything. But man, he does just a perfect job with the character.
He is perfect.
Wonderful.
For me, it really is. It's all the subtle things in his performance. There's a scene later where they're going to get on the helicarrier, and it's presumably one of the first time he's been around regular people, or at least, I mean, I don't know if the helicarrier people are regular people or not, but he's been not directly in hiding in a few years, and he walks by some guards, and it's just this really brief moment, but he walks by some guards and he kind of averts his face just a little bit, and it's just like that's what he would do. That's what he would that's what this character would instinctually do, and it's just cool that he brings all that in. Like, I feel like he does a really great job.
So Tony Stark just said a line. He said the Stark Tower is now self-sustained, running entirely on clean energy from the arc reactor. And in the beginning of the movie, it's mentioned that the Tesseract is an energy source. And later on, it's also said that S.H.I.E.L.D. is supposedly working on an energy project to make the Tesseract itself an unlimited energy source for the entire world, so that, they can have clean energy basically forever. And that was the project that they were working on. What's interesting is that if you think about it, with those two elements there, this movie is at its core about energy. About energy,
yeah.
It's about...
Just like Winter Soldier is about privacy?
Yeah, I would say privacy and civil liberties and things like that. But this movie is about energy. This movie came out a year and change after the 2011 Great Tohoku earthquake in Japan and the Fukushima incident, which we were here for.
Yes, we were.
And I think it would be ignorant to say that this is not a direct response to that.
Yeah.
This is a post-Fukushima movie.
Yeah.
And it is about clean energy. At its core, it's about clean energy. That's where the conflict
I think
really
so. I
comes
think you're
from
right.
and surrounds. What ends up happening, of course, is that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually using the Tesseract to build weapons, so their quote-unquote clean energy is actually being used for more nefarious purposes, and it's actually a danger to the world, much like people consider nuclear energy. So it's maybe not that it's not clean, but it has other purposes, which, of course, nuclear power also has other purposes.
Yes, of course, right.
So the allusions there are pretty clear. But I do think that's interesting.
Before we get way too far from it, I want to point out the foreshadowing we had with Black Widow and the Hulk, where we were talking over it, but she kind of got scared, or she definitely got scared when he started yelling at her, and she kind of spazzed out and just stood there with the gun, and he was the one who had to calm her down. And I love that dynamic right there, but it's definitely foreshadowing for the later scene where she's going to have to deal with that fear of the Hulk, which will happen when he chases her and she's trapped with him. This scene here on the top with Pepper and Tony
inside Stark Tower,
is one of my favorite scenes. The dialogue in this scene is just impeccable.
So fast, it's so quippy fast and stylish.
Like,
and
I mean,
fun.
if I would basically just be quoting the whole scene,
which is characteristic of the entire movie, I think.
Right, true. I love how Tony Stark is sarcastic to everything, even his machines. He was just the perfect character for Joss Whedon to write. Why would anyone but Joss Whedon write Tony Stark? Like, I love the way that he handles this character.
I believe Jarvis becomes one of the Avengers in the next movie.
Is it that Jarvis becomes an Avenger or the
Vision?
What?
So I think the Vision is going to be in the next movie, and the Vision is a robot, I think. And they're going to put Jarvis inside the Vision, so Jarvis basically becomes
interesting.
That's
Avenger. Cool.
I think that's how it works. I know that Paul Bettany. I could be wrong, but it makes sense because Paul Bettany is doing the voice for the Vision, and he's also the voice for Jarvis. So I think that's probably how it's going.
I love the relationship between Tony and Pepper. I think that
perfect, right?
It is perfect.
It's wonderful.
She is it's like the total opposite of the relationship between Thor and whatever her face is, Jane
Foster.
Like,
it's casual, it's light,
and it's
fun,
believable.
and it's believable.
She can handle him. She's the only one who can handle him, and he hardly handles her. Like and with Thor and Jane, I just feel like it's totally that doesn't exist at all. That there's no reason.
Well, you're
like
absolutely
why
right. There's no chemistry, and that's the thing, and it could be, and it probably is, and I'm going to say that it is the writing. I don't think that Thor and Jane Foster are written particularly well together, whereas Tony and Pepper are
just perfect.
Yeah, there's just so much character, and because of the chemistry that's built between them, not only in like their natural chemistry as great actors, because they're both incredible actors, Gwyneth Paltrow and Robert Downey Jr., but the writing itself is at that level.
Well,
that
in her own way, she's as smart as he is. The things that she's able to say to him to come back to deal with the things that he says and does are just as witty and sarcastic.
And I find that their relationship, although is not overtly romantic, is innately romantic,
right?
Because of the chemistry and the familiarity
you
between them.
You care so much more about it.
Oh yeah, you're invested in them because they're invested in each other.
Like, oh gosh,
they
the
need
moment,
each other.
The moment at the end of this movie when Tony's going up into the portal and he's potentially going to die because he's got the bomb.
Her.
And Jarvis is like, should we call Pepper? Should we call Miss Potts? And he's like, yeah, I might as well. And you're just like, oh God, he really thinks he's going to die. Mm-hmm. He thinks he's going to die, so he's calling Pepper. Mm-hmm. And then she's sitting there watching the news and she's terrified and her phone rings and she doesn't see it because she's watching the news because she's terrified. Like, and I care because they're not just in a romantic relationship. That's secondary to the fact that they're best friends and they need each other. I don't think he would function without her.
Oh no, they need each other.
He would not function without
absolutely.
Without Pepper.
It's a symbiotic relationship, and that's, it's one needs the other to survive, and I think that's how you build the best kind of relationship. Thor doesn't need Jane, and Jane doesn't need Thor. No. They're just two people out of different worlds, and they find love somehow, even though they're
even though they talked for like a day about nothing. Oh God, that movie.
So this is Loki talking to the other, who is apparently a Chitauri, which is a race of alien warriors that Loki is going to bring to Earth through a portal to take over the Earth.
I read that in the comics they have previously tried to take over the Earth and actually aided the Nazis in World War II, and Captain America stopped them.
I think their first appearance was in Mark Millar's. It's in the first arc.
But then
of Mark
I also
Millar's
read that they're actually
Ultimate series.
I read that they're actually supposed to be a different race or something in this storyline. That it's not supposed to be the Chitauri or something like that.
I don't know. It's Skrulls. Maybe the Skrulls. I think in the comic books they're also referred to as the Skrulls.
Oh, okay. So that's the same thing.
Do you recognize this actor?
Is that a joke?
Well, I mean, you might know him. He's a Joss Whedon alum.
Who is it?
That's Alexis Denisof, Wesley.
Are you
Buffy.
serious?
Yep, not even kidding.
Oh my gosh!
Yep, that's crazy.
Look at Whedon giving his actors little parts in this movie.
Yeah, Gunn's in the TV show, The Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is he?
Yeah, he's in the. I think he's in one of the first. Well, he's probably a recurring character, but I don't know.
You know what?
I
feel like we've only watched like
Gunn from Angel is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
The first episode.
Yeah,
or
it
two
didn't really
of
grab me. Chitauri is actually a Zulu word that refers to Zulu mythology. Mm-hmm. That means a serpent, like a serpent creature that comes from the sky.
That's interesting.
Yeah, super interesting, isn't it?
I like it. I like it when good fantasy plays on good mythology.
Yeah, and Mark Millar did write that mythology into his Ultimates comic book series. So
now we're here on the helicarrier. And we've got Captain and Black Widow meeting for the first time, which I love because I love the Winter Soldier and I love their relationship in the Winter Soldier. And now I actually care about this scene, which was not a scene that I was particularly invested in before. But now I'm like, oh, look, it's Black Widow talking to Captain.
It's great.
They're going to be Biffles later.
One of the great, and not to take the attention away from the Avengers, but in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, one of the great things about their relationship is It's not a romantic relationship.
And that's
It doesn't
totally
and it's totally
cool.
okay.
They
It doesn't
don't-
have to be.
They don't mess like
She is not the love interest. Yeah.
Right.
She is not the love interest in any way, form, or fashion.
Well-
She is a standalone character that does not rely on any other character to be a character.
Absolutely. Which again makes me love her so much.
Yeah, it's great.
And
That's why I keep saying, like, she has motivations in this movie, a lot of which kind of depend on Clint Barton, Hawkeye's character, which is, of course, a male character, and there is some kind of hint that maybe there's a relationship or something.
But Black
there.
Widow, the thing that I didn't, I
Maybe
don't know
I'm
that I
reading that
really
into it, though,
that I really understood this in this movie, but she doesn't have emotion. Like that's what her thing is in in Winter Soldier is that. Or at least her emotion, she is capable of completely subduing it. And I don't feel like I understood that as much. It exists in this movie. It's there. But I don't feel like I understood it as much in this movie as I was able to in Winter Soldier. And then I realized that she talks about being unmade in this movie. She references it.
There are lots of references to her past that are neither in the comic books nor in reference to real life events. They're just kind of hinted at.
It's just stuff in this universe that we haven't explored yet. And
I think she's getting close to her own movie.
I hope so.
I think she's ready for her own standalone movie because, like I said, she becomes a character. Despite her motivations in this movie, which allow her to function, she actually becomes a character in the Winter Soldier for the first time, and a good one at
character
that.
that I really like and that I'm invested in. I'm interested in.
Poor Hawkeye. I don't know if he's ever going to get there.
I don't think so.
Poor guy. He just can't get a break, can he?
Man, no. I love it when with these reflective panel things. I think good sci-fi should be nearly believable, and that is nearly believable to me that they can go almost invisible just because they have these panels that mimic the panels like that reflect whatever the panels on top are showing. And so you see through it. I think it's really cool. But have we already passed the cards yet? The Captain America cards? I think we passed
Black
their
Widow
first.
mentioned them.
Yes.
She said that Coulson has a set of original Captain America trading cards and that they're vintage and that he's very proud.
And then Coulson, if he hasn't said it yet, is going to
ask Cap to sign them.
yes, and tell them that there's slight foxing around the edges. And,
He hasn't said that yet.
but which Captain, of course, is just like looking at.
Okay.
But what do you think about Fury's decision to place the cards, to tell the remaining Avengers that the cards were in Coulson's pocket when they were not, when they were in the locker?
How does it make me feel about his character?
Or just about that decision? I mean,
I don't know. I think he explains it pretty well, pretty briefly, concisely.
that's always stuck out with me.
They
in
needed
this
the push.
movie.
That's what he says. They needed the push.
That he just made it a little bit more dramatic than it already was.
Yeah, it's kind of like exploiting the dead, and that's kind of shitty. But it's okay because Coulson's not really dead. He comes back in the TV show, which I think is kind of poopy. I think that's it's unfortunate because going into this, everyone was thinking, okay, Joss Whedon is famous for a couple of things, one of which is killing off beloved characters. But who could he possibly kill off who's in the Avengers? Who is Marvel going to allow him to kill off?
Right.
And
he's not going to be allowed to kill off Thor.
He's not going to be allowed
to kill off Iron Man,
no,
right?
all of these people,
He can't
all of
kill
these
them.
characters are cash cows.
Right.
Every last one of them.
And as much as Joss Whedon's going, but we have to kill
we
a
have to
few
kill
of
somebody.
them,
No,
right?
we have to kill somebody, right?
A few
I'm sure.
people have to die.
He's nowhere near as bad as George
He
R.
was
R.
doing
Martin.
right, but he was doing it back with Buffy and everything.
Oh
He
yeah,
was-
of course. He did it years and years ago. It's one of his things. So the answer to the question, who is Marvel going to allow him to kill off, is ultimately nobody.
because ultimately, he
although
doesn't kill
Coulson
anyone.
does get a death scene in this movie, he comes back for the TV show. I don't know. That's
Whatever. Okay, whatever. We haven't really watched the TV show. People keep telling us that we should
yeah, I
continue
keep hearing
and
it.
try So maybe we'll give
give
it
it a
an
shot.
attempt
Okay.
later, a better attempt. One thing we skipped over because it was so fast was we very briefly, when we came into the, I guess, command center on the helicarrier, they just mention, oh, we're using this face detection. Sir.
Also, Hawkeye is murdering people right now.
Well, yeah, but that's called on later. He calls when he wakes up from his evilness. He's like, how many agents did I? And she's like, don't think about it, Hawkeye.
Wow. It's a really great dramatic reinterpretation of that scene.
You're welcome.
Don't worry about it, Hawkeye.
The thing I always forget that's messed up is how horribly Loki is about to kill this guy.
Yes.
I always kind of forget that.
There's some graphic stuff in
where
this
he
movie.
like screw drives out his eye with this blender demon machine thing right here. Oh, it's awful.
I would kind of like to see an R-rated Avengers that was going for the R. You know what I mean?
And
but
his
they did,
fancy walking stick too. Can we comment on that?
Well, what about it?
That Loki has turned his scepter into a fancy walking stick
that still really stands out.
Yeah.
Like he transformed it so as to not make it so conspicuous, but it's still kind of conspicuous with a glowing stone in it. But yeah, we were talking about this before the show, but the MPAA actually, the producers had to petition the MPAA 3 times for the PG-13 rating, not because of the eyeball screwdriver device scene, which also is like a really weird device that has like one purpose.
Yeah. Man, it took a lot of effort
who
to
developed
make it
that to like
do this one
screw
thing.
up someone's eyeball and send a hologram to a different device?
Okay, so we're getting to a scene that we're going to talk about a lot. So I think
But yeah, what I was saying is I would just like to see a real R-rated cut of the Avengers. But then again, any PG-13 movie ever, I'd like to see a real
I always
hard
say
R.
the same thing about it. Like Guardians, oh my God, that movie really needed to be R. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was kind of stretching and squirming inside the limitations.
Yeah, there were
of the
some moments where
PG-13.
you were like, oh, they're not doing what they want to do here.
The scene that we just saw with the German police car like skidding across the road on its front bumper, which is I think one of the more memorable like images from this movie. Like
Yeah.
I always remember it. Loki shoots it and it skids on its front bumper. That was totally an accident. The car's supposed to flip over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Cool.
It just looked cool.
Isn't
that
it
way.
awesome how accidents in filming often are the things that, like, of course, the infamous Han Solo line.
Oh, yes.
Right? That improv things are often the best things.
Harrison Ford alone has a couple under his belt.
The Indiana Jones one where he just shoots
the
him
guy,
because
yeah.
he's tired of redoing the scene over and over.
You like this scene a lot. I like this scene too.
I like this scene, but I have issue with this scene.
Okay, let's go into it. I know
Okay.
you were thinking about this a lot before the show.
So we have an old German guy who is standing up to Loki right now, and literally standing up to Loki while everyone else is kneeling, and we are clearly, Captain America jumps in and he physically defends him, deflects a blow away from him, and then proceeds to eliminate the threat of Loki with the help of the other Avengers. But it is very obviously a reference to World War II, because not only does the old German guy stand up to Loki, who is this evil tyrant, and say, there have always been men like you, and
Specifically referring to people like Hitler.
And then when Cap comes in, he specifically again says the same thing and almost makes a direct comment comparing him to Hitler. He says something like, the last time I was in Germany and someone was standing up above and he was in World War II, right? So we are very, very
Duh.
we are very, very making a direct reference to German people trying to stand up against their evil tyrant, but not having the power to do so, and America coming and saving them, which is what we did supposedly in World War II.
Well, that's what the scene is alluding to.
That's what the scene is alluding to. That's what the scene is saying.
However, you take issue with that.
America came and did that, and I take issue with it because I feel like it's jingoistic, for one thing, and I feel like it's failing to address the major... I mean, and not that there's a way for them to address this, but the failure of the Allied response to the Holocaust is something that is debated a lot by historians. I mean, we in specifically the bombing that we did not do to the concentration camps is a major issue in modern historian debate, and it's because we have photos of what was going on. We have aerial photos from 1944 of Auschwitz where we can see the smoke coming out of the cremation pits. Of, like, in Auschwitz, in 3 months, 400,000 people died, and we knew about it.
Yeah.
We knew it was happening, and we didn't directly respond to it.
We didn't do anything until Pearl Harbor brought us into
well,
the war in the Pacific.
Pearl Harbor was before that, and we came in because of Pearl Harbor, but we had this information about the concentration camps specifically, and we chose not to bomb them.
Right.
And that, of course...
So so it's a false illusion that the movie creates.
Saying that America came to rescue Germany is hard for me to swallow because...
So if the scene played out in a truthful way, how do you think it would have played out?
The old guy and half the people should have died before America came to rescue them.
That's a pretty harsh criticism. But I stand by it. I stand by that criticism.
I mean,
I think you're absolutely right.
It's not that I don't get the happy feelings from seeing that scene, because I do.
It's like
I get the happy feelings.
Yeah.
Oh, superheroes, and
Light
America
and
came and we saved the day, and it's a reference to Germany and us are friends now, and all of that
fighting
is
Nazis,
great.
the world's ultimate real bad guy.
I am totally for all of that, but I think it's a false representation of what actually happened historically.
Sure.
So I have issue with it.
I understand that.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Let's stop talking about the Holocaust, please. And let's start talking about superheroes again. So in this scene right here, we've got Thor and Loki. Thor has come back from Asgard, and he has taken Loki off of the Quinjet. I guess that's what they're writing, is the Quinjet. And they've landed on Earth, and Thor is confronting his adopted brother about all the bad shit he's been up to, all that naughty, mischievous junk that he's...
Hey,
I mean, he's Loki.
He is the trickster god. We are supposed to expect these things.
He's not
him.
a god. He's an alien in this.
Whatever.
But there's actually a really interesting reference in this scene. After Thor takes Loki off the Quinjet and down to the mountain where they are now, two large ravens fly by them as they're talking. Now, in Norse mythology, their father Odin had two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who would bring Odin information from Midgard, which is Earth.
That's cool.
So it's kind of a little reference
definitely.
Real Norse mythology, yeah.
This mountaintop battle is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Well, it's in the forest.
Yes.
Once
the
Thor
scene,
gets
the scene
swept
is called
out of the
Mountaintop
scene.
Battle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You mean the chapter on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The chapter on the Blu-ray. I love it, and it goes into. It starts me off with this. I made my own fan theory this time with. I just gotta look. So.
Yeah, I gave you a look.
So I made my own fan theory, and I tried to put it together, and I can't.
I don't have a problem
failed
discussing
at it.
fan theories on Popcorn Poops, but when you start making your own for Popcorn
I'm a fan, and I have a theory. So
you almost made me do it.
What?
Well, it's appropriate. It's a Joss Whedon movie. I have a theory that it's a demon. Okay, we're done. That's it. That's all you get.
So here in this scene, we're going to have our first fight between some of the Avengers amongst each other, between each other. And we're going to get, Iron Man and Thor first?
Iron Man and Thor.
And then Cap's going to show up.
Yes.
And then throughout this movie, we're going to have them fighting each other physically a few times in different pairings. And I think that since this movie so heavily relies on the character relationships and specifically the pairings of characters, when I think about this movie, I don't think, I love Thor, I love Captain America. I think, I love Captain America and Iron Man together. I love the way they interact. It cracks me up. I love the way that Bruce Banner and Tony Stark act together. I think that it is fantastic. Like, I love the pairings in this movie. And so I was thinking that maybe there are some parallels that could be drawn between the way their powers interact with the way their character relationships interact.
This is getting fan theory-y.
Yeah.
Go ahead, lay it on me.
Except I don't actually have any ideas except that I...
What?
But like,
what?
So
cock tease.
Thor uses lightning, right? And he attacks Iron Man here, and it just makes Iron Man stronger. So like when Thor verbally attacks Tony Stark, does it just piss him off more and like make him more sarcastic than he usually is, or something like that? Like,
is that Tony Stark's superpower, is being sarcastic?
More sarcastic than the average person. I don't know. Just I was trying to come up with some stuff. I basically just wrote down like the way they interact physically. That Thor can't match Captain's defense.
Right.
So maybe in a relationship way, he wouldn't be able to break down Captain's beliefs, or I don't know. I'm trying to stretch it.
If you start like trying to break this down into Dungeons and Dragons stats, then that's the end. I'm cutting you off.
I'm not going there today. Anyways, it's just something that I was thinking about while I was watching it.
I think what you're getting at is something that is real and is not a fan theory. But the reason that they probably chose Joss Whedon to tackle this movie in the first place is because he is so good with ensemble casts.
Yes, he is.
And the way he approaches it in this movie is just brilliant. And you're right about the pairings, because what he does is he tackles character development and character interactions 2 characters at a time. He puts 2 characters together, puts them in situations, allows you to see how they interact with one another, and then develops that specific relationship, and then he does another 2 characters.
Right.
And he does that through the entire movie and he doesn't do it with he doesn't exhaust every single character pairing, but he does enough of them that you get a feel for
all
the
of them.
Team's dynamic.
Right,
exactly,
you do. I mean, you can sit down and you know how a pair interacts.
Yes.
You know how they work together.
Absolutely. And you can see them becoming a team, because the ones that don't get along so well
maybe get along with someone else in like a third party kind of way.
Exactly. And are forced into situations in which they have to work together and become closer and become more like a team.
Like when Cap and Iron Man.
Exactly. Captain America and Iron Man have to fix the engine on the helicarrier during the attack from Hawkeye and Loki's minions. And they're forced into a situation where they have to work together. And what was kind of a strained relationship before becomes a relationship based on teamwork, which leads them into the final act, where we get to see the Avengers finally assembled and working together, which is what we've really built toward. I think that is if filmmaking and art, narrative art specifically, is a series of problems that have to be solved with a story, I think that is the biggest problem with a story of this type. And I don't think that it's done much better anywhere else.
No, I don't think so either.
It's incredible. It's
really
really incredible.
Because that is the problem.
People,
you get group story. I mean, even the X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's another ensemble cast issue, and most of those movies are not fantastic.
That's true, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, most of them are not. And I mean, there are a couple gems in there. There are a couple that I really love. But I feel like they've just got so many characters and they don't know what to do with them all.
Well,
I don't know how Storm really reacts to Wolverine. I'm not really certain how they get along. I guess I have an idea.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up an interesting point with X-Men, because Joss Whedon actually wrote an early draft of the X-Men script. So people knew that he was not only a comic book guy and kind of a geek icon, way back 14 years ago, but that he was also amazing with ensemble casts, because he had been working on Buffy. He had a show Buffy, which is,
the epitome of TV ensemble cast working
together and working well. So he wrote that script. Unfortunately, only a couple of his lines of dialogue made it into the final draft. But the other stuff that he's worked on it's really clear that is his forte. He's nominated for an Academy Award for writing for being a co-writer on Toy Story, which is an ensemble cast.
Yep,
that's what he does. I think that another director that I think has proven to work well with ensemble casts based on a single film is Guillermo del Toro. I think Blade 2, I don't think Blade 2 really gets the respect it deserves, and I think it's totally appropriate to talk about because it's a Marvel movie. Just give me a little breathing room here. But had Guillermo del Toro kind of followed that path and directed more movies that have the ensemble cast that he puts together and really directs amazingly well, and actually very similarly to this movie, I think that he would probably be called upon to do more Marvel stuff like Joss Whedon is now kind of in charge of the Avengers films for the time being. And I think he's great at it. I don't think they could have picked anyone better. And I know that there was some, mewling and whining about Joss Whedon being chosen to direct the Avengers, because Joss Whedon is one of those figures, especially on the internet, that's like you either love him or you hate him. You love what he does and you love his snappy, idiosyncratic dialogue because it's very him. He is kind of an auteur in that way. You can sense his style of writing in the writing itself. And then there are other people that really turns them off. They don't like to feel the hand of the writer. They want it to be more naturalistic. They don't want everyone to be the smartest person in the room, So for me, I like his writing a lot. I like writing like that in general.
Yeah,
that's why I can continually consider myself to be a Kevin Smith fan for kind of the same reason.
Right.
His dialogue, of course, both of them, the dialogue itself does draw attention to itself, but it's stylish and fun, and it's easy to listen to, and I like it. It's funny. So
It is funny. I mean, this movie, we haven't really been talking about it, but there are so many. Oh my gosh, Stark just did the thing where he puts his hand over his eye to pretend to be
so offensive.
Nick Fury.
So offensive.
And also we got to mention it, the stuff we haven't been pointing out, all the hilarious stuff in this movie where he calls the guy out for playing Galaga, and the thing is that he says, that guy over there, he's playing Galaga. He thought we wouldn't notice. And the thing is that I didn't notice it until a very recent rewatch of this movie. But right before we cut away from this scene, we get a shot of the guy turning around, looking to make sure no one's there, and then bringing back up his minimized screen of Galaga. So he totally was playing Galaga. And I didn't notice, just like Tony Stark said, that I didn't.
So... Just like that, in this scene, there was another joke that totally flew. I've probably watched this movie almost 10 times now, if not 10 times.
Yeah.
Another strength of the movie is that it is infinitely rewatchable.
Absolutely.
So rewatchable. But there's a line in here, a joke in here that I've always missed until a recent rewatch, just like, the Galaga thing. And that's when Banner refers to Loki. He says that his head is like a bag full of cats, which is just amazing. Just gives me amazing mental image. Yeah, exactly. It says that you can smell crazy on him, and Thor takes offense, and he says, "Be careful how you speak of Loki. He is my brother, and he is of Asgard, and he deserves more respect." And Black Widow says, "Well, he killed 80 people in 2 days," and Thor responds, "Oh, he's adopted." I never noticed that until recently.
And really straight, too.
Yeah, just really straight. And then they just continue with the scene. It's that kind of stuff that just flies under the radar, and even after watching it so many times, I'm still picking up little jokes here and there and little lines.
Absolutely, every time. Because some of them are so fast, especially when it's Stark dialogue. When it's Stark dialogue, he just plays it. Robert Downey Jr. plays it so fast.
This character, I mean, if the universe worked the way it should work, no one should write Tony Stark ever again except for Joss Whedon, because he was kind of born to write Tony
absolutely.
Stark.
That's what I was saying before. He's just perfect for it. I love when he stabs him right there with the electric thing and then looks him in the eyes really hard, to see if he's going to do something. I love that he's constantly trying to get him to turn into the Hulk.
Let me go back to what I said. I don't mean that no one should write Tony Stark. I mean that no one should write Tony Stark as played by Robert Downey Jr., but Joss Whedon. Because I think
it's perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect pairing. Whedon is so sarcastic.
He just pulled some food out.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
This food right here that he's got, this little bag of something, some kind of whatever. That's actually Robert Downey Jr.'s food. He apparently hid food all over the laboratory set, and just pulled it out whenever.
Cat?
Yeah, I guess.
Just hide little snacks everywhere.
And he just pulls it out and starts eating in a very Brad Pitt kind of mood, eating in the middle of a scene and, spitting your lines through food in your teeth and whatnot. And look, he
offers some.
Banner says something he likes, so he offers him some of his food, and Mark Ruffalo takes it.
And
none of that is scripted.
I think you can almost see in that moment just almost a smirk on Ruffalo's face, almost, where he's just like
I like this.
Okay.
I like what we're doing here.
Okay, we're gonna share food in this scene.
Yeah, it's good stuff. This is kind of...
Captain does not think it's funny.
This is kind of a really great feel-good movie.
It is. Like Guardians. Very much
Guardians,
like Guardians
is very, very much that way too. It doesn't have the soundtrack to kind of drive that home like Guardians of the Galaxy does, but I think visually, just the color palette of this movie, I'm thinking primary colors because Captain America's on screen right now, and red, white, and blue, and
Yes.
But I think that is kind of the operative color palette for this movie is primary colors.
Yeah.
And it gives the film a visual identity. Everything is very clean. Everything is very base colors. Everything pops.
And when things are not being colored, generally we're in like a white setting with the colors standing out on it, like in this room.
Like in this scene right here, exactly.
So, yeah.
But I think it looks great. I think the movie just looks really, really nice. I wish all of the Marvel movies could look this good, and I'm kind of thinking of the Thor movies in particular, especially the second one, that just looks like just CG gobbledygook, just junk. It just looks
like I'm
junk.
trying to picture what Asgard looks like, and it's really hard to picture what it looks like.
I mean, the best thing going on in the second Thor movie,
thing.
Yeah, the rainbow bridge,
some like pastel-ish colors in the background. I don't know,
lots of gold and
very
ornate, decorative stuff. I don't know.
Whatever.
I think the best thing the second movie has, the best thing Thor: The Dark World has going on for it visually, is that battlefield scene where everything is practical and it's people in costumes and stuff like that. I think that had the movie looked
at the beginning of the movie. Yes, I loved that.
Yeah,
I absolutely loved it.
Had the movie looked more like that and less like
the rest of the movie,
just like a green screen.
No, absolutely. Yeah. That scene when it started, I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna do it! They're gonna make me love this.
They're making an 80s fantasy movie.
They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it." And then they didn't fucking do it. And then I was pissed. And now I was such an easy sell. I like bad fantasy.
Do you see this bubbling bromance?
I love this bromance. Do not hate on
screen. It. I'm not hating on it. I think it's great.
You're gonna make fun of it. You called it bubbling.
No, bubbling as in good, as in brewing, and like in a percolator.
I love at the end of the movie when they get in the car together. And Bruce kind of tries.
Let's be honest. It's a little gay.
No,
it's a little, no. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm gonna be like Seinfeld, and that's perfectly okay because it totally is. But it is a little gay. And you can't say it's not because you were just scrolling through like random Avengers stuff today looking for, random trivia and different talking points for the show. And one of the things that popped up on Google was some slash fic of who else? Stark and Banner.
Of course.
And what did it start with? What was the first line of the slash fic? I don't know.
It was something about they were going to get a divorce or something like that.
That's how you start your slash fic, is that Stark and Banner aren't starting a romance together, but they have had one and are married and are now in the process of getting a divorce. Clearly
a good read. I sure do love fanfic.
I will never see Stellan Skarsgård the same way again after watching Nymphomaniac. I've seen that man's penis, and there's no coming back from that.
Oh, no. And here we get our throwaway. We get our Thor throwaway to Jane Foster.
Oh yeah, it's like, she's off doing this other thing where she won't be part of this movie at all. So don't worry about her. And Thor's like, I thank you very much, Phil Coulson. You are.
Yeah. So my whole big thing about this is that they make it very clear that it's extremely difficult for Thor to get here. The way that Loki refers to it is he says something about like, how much dark energy did the All-Father have to muster to conjure you here to your precious Earth? And like they make this because, as I recall, at the end of the first movie, he's like, pining away for her, looking down onto Earth, and the guy who sees down onto Earth is like, she's searching for you, and Thor's like, okay, and so like this whole, you know, pining, distant romance, and which I didn't feel, and the end of the movie gives you a feeling like he can't go back down there for, I guess, because of the energy crisis or something like that. Like he can't go back down there.
Story voodoo.
And so for him to show up in this movie is a big deal. And the fact that he's a big deal, that it's a big deal that he's here. He's a big deal. And it was nearly impossible for him to come here to Earth, but he doesn't go see her. I mean,
what can you do? What can you do?
I don't buy it.
Pepper's
here.
I don't care.
We see Pepper.
Sure. At Robert Downey Jr.'s insistence that Gwyneth Paltrow be cast.
Did he?
Yeah. I think that
is fantastic.
Natalie Portman was supposed to make a cameo in the movie, but she was shooting something else, so she couldn't.
Anyways, to me, it just furthers my belief that their romance is totally non-existent and boring. And
she got pregnant. That's what it was. Natalie Portman was pregnant.
That's fine. Whatever. I just think that it just continues it to me. Like, it just works in it that, sure, why would he go see her? Why would he, on this one maybe only trip that he'll ever make to Earth again, go see the love of his life who he's been pining away for desperately?
And maybe have another cup of coffee.
Seem
to really like that.
It'll be like the third time they've talked. So.
That's right. He can smash cups all over the cafe and
God.
act like an ass. Can we talk about the story a little bit? Can we talk about like the story itself?
Go ahead and try.
I mean, it's not that it's hard to follow, but the story operates on, well, much like Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, it operates on a MacGuffin. Which
Guardians actually makes this fantastic little poke at, where they list off
famous movie MacGuffins, like
the one from
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Yeah, they mention the Ark from Raiders of the Lost Ark and other famous movie MacGuffins. So Guardians of the Galaxy is aware of it, and it's not that, you know, Zach Penn and Joss Whedon, who wrote, you know, this movie, were not aware of what they were doing. But the Tesseract is absolutely a MacGuffin.
Right.
It makes the story go forward. The weird thing is that at some point the MacGuffin stalls out, I guess, or they felt like it wasn't working anymore or something. So they create a MacGuffin for the MacGuffin.
What, like the stuff that they have to go get?
Yeah, with the whole thing with like the eyeball guy, and
so they can get the, what was it?
Iridium. Yeah, Iridium, so that they can stabilize the Tesseract, so that they can open the portal. And by getting the Iridium, it makes Loki come up on the Avengers radar, and then they go, or the Shield's radar rather, and they go pick him up and they capture him, and then they have the Iridium. So Stellan Skarsgård, who plays, what's his character's name? Selvig,
yeah, and he's the guy from Thor.
Right. So the Iridium becomes the second MacGuffin in the movie.
Right.
So when your MacGuffin needs a MacGuffin,
I mean,
I can forgive a lot.
So many of these movies, though, are like that, though. But I don't care in this movie, which is the big thing, is that, like, if you ask me, what are they doing? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? Like, what's the goal or whatever? I'm just like, I think there's something.
I mean, of course,
and
they're trying to save the world.
Get it? To save the world. And then a bunch of aliens come and they got to fight them. And, like, who's the bad guy? He's that guy, Thanos, maybe. I don't know who he is. Here's the thing.
In a movie like this, with an ensemble cast as big as this is, and with a variety of personalities, unless you want your movie to be like 3 hours long or longer, which actually the movie was at the script level, the movie was going to be over 3 hours long.
I would have watched it.
And they had to cut characters. They cut out Ant-Man. They cut out the Wasp.
That's
like I said
incredibly
before.
depressing. Ant-Man and the Wasp are my favorite comic book relationship of all time.
They'll get theirs. They're working on the movie now. But I think in a movie like this, unless you want it to be like a huge Ben-Hur-esque epic, you gotta trim the fat somewhere, and you gotta streamline some stuff. And I think that the story actually had to take the hit. Story's not all that good. It's it's basic MacGuffin operated kind of superhero stuff. Where
again, with the
bad guy has a thing that does a thing, so the superheroes have to stop it, and that creates the drama and the action. The other half of that coin for a film of this type is the characters. And I think that I don't think you could do much better than they did in this movie.
Absolutely.
Again, Hawkeye.
I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite. I'm sorry, Nick. What were you lying?
Again, and we've said it before. Again, Hawkeye and Black Widow do kind of get the short end of the stick there, but I do think that they do the best they can with what they have, which really, honestly, isn't a whole lot. And again, if you don't want your movie to be 3 hours long, then you gotta trim something somewhere. But I think that it is amazing. And I said it before, I'm going to say it again. It's a miracle the movie works. It's a miracle the movie is
I think
is
so
as
too.
good
I
as
was
it
terrified. I was so terrified that this was going to be awful. When I heard Josh was on
I was a little terrified after the first scene. Like the first scene at the facility that just is kind of cheap and weird, and Loki escapes. I keep coming back to this, but Loki escapes on a pickup truck.
In the commentary, Josh, like, he talks about how excited they were about finding, because it's a real NASA facility.
Yeah, that hangar was not a set; it's an actual
and he talks
facility.
about how excited he was that they got to film in it and everything. And I'm just like, but I think it looks kind of boring. Like,
it does. It just looks like a big box.
Right. It looks like a real NASA facility, which is not that interesting, actually.
Yeah, surprisingly and unfortunately, it's not all that.
Unfortunately, it's like the real world.
I'm sure being there, like I'm sure if you walked into the facility, you'd be like, "Wow, this is really big and crazy." But when you film it,
it's just makes be even crazier. This scene right here, this chapter I believe is called "Tensions Rise" or something, and appropriately titled because of this. Again, there's that artsy looking stuff where we turn upside down.
Here's another one of those
to
shots.
Look at them through the
because the scepter is literally turning their world upside down, not literally, figuratively. But I guess when you do the camera like that, it's literal.
It is literal.
But it is literal.
Them arguing in that scene, the scene where they all start arguing and Bruce eventually picks up the scepter, that, again, is one of my favorite scenes. I have a lot of favorite scenes in this movie, but that's one of my favorite scenes in this movie because we see very directly their relationship pairings, the ones who get along, the ones who do not get along, and the ways in which they don't get along, why they don't get along. It's such good character writing. And for me, I love story. I think story is great. I think plot is great, but I care way more about my characters.
Oh, yeah.
Way more. If you have an interesting character, then I'm going to certainly be sympathetic to them, and if I'm empathetic with a character, even better, and they're interesting and they're doing interesting things, then I don't care that much what they're doing. It doesn't really matter.
At the end of the day, I will watch a bad story with good characters, but I will not watch a good story with bad characters.
Right.
I can't.
For a good example for me is Charlene Harris, the Sookie Stackhouse Mysteries.
Right.
Okay.
The True Blood series.
The True Blood.
On.
Right.
Yeah.
That series, the second half of the series is really, really, really bad. But
frustratingly bad.
Yes, incredibly frustratingly bad, which I think is a byproduct of the television show getting so popular and her having a lot of pressure to write quickly and write more, and maybe she was finished with it but couldn't be, whatever. Anyways, the first few books in that series are incredible because Sookie is such an amazing character. And I don't care about her telepathy, and I don't care about her werewolves and her vampires and her mysteries. I just want to hang out with her. I just want to listen to her. She can be doing laundry and cooking something, and I care because it's her. The story doesn't matter. I don't care what they're about. The books aren't, like, the plots in those stories, even the first few, aren't that, like, they don't really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But she's compelling. So I love them.
Yeah.
And that's what
good characters
this
in a
is.
bad story.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
not that the story is bad, it's just
right. And the
simple.
first few books in the Sookie the series, they aren't necessarily bad. The later ones are really bad, but this story is kind of like that. It's just whatever. It's just
simple. It functions. That's all you can ask this story to do, because that's not the focus. The focus is on the characters, seeing them interact and putting them in situations where they respond, because I mean, Nick Fury says it. They're a response team. That's what you're
Right.
here to watch them do, is respond to things that, happening around them, to watch them become a team, to watch them grow as characters, which every last one of them does. Every
single
last
one of them.
character grows.
I think the most distinct one is maybe the Hulk, where he throughout the whole movie is saying,
Quite literally.
yeah, yes, he literally grows. He continually says in the movie that he's not going to participate physically, that he's there for his brain and his gamma radiation knowledge, and that's the only reason he's there. And of course, Stark keeps poking him and trying to convince him that he's going to show up as the Hulk, that he's going to help them as the Hulk.
Right.
And in the end, he does. He realizes he can control himself to some degree. That he can think, maybe. I think that there's a great moment later on when, I think it's when Thor and the Hulk are fighting, where Thor says, "Think, you have to try to think." Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because in my perception of them, Bruce Banner is way smarter than Thor. and Thor is telling him to try and think. And it's
think about science, human.
But
quick, math, do it in your brain.
Oh God. Oh, here's Hawkeye doing something.
Doing whatever he's doing.
Whatever. Poor Hawkeye.
I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Jeremy Renner because I think he's been in definitely more than one franchise.
He was in the Thor one.
He was.
You're talking about a different franchise.
Oh yeah,
entirely.
he's been in a couple of franchises where he just kind of gets the short end of the stick always. Mm-hmm. He was in one of the Bourne movies that was supposed to kind of reboot the franchise, and it was panned by critics. And apparently, in the next one, Matt Damon's coming back, so Jeremy Renner's out of that franchise. He was in the latest Mission Impossible movie, and I don't know that he's going to be back for the next one. And he was good in that too. Mm-hmm. Like the guy's been nominated for an Academy Award, I think, for his work in The Hurt Locker. And I think he's a fine actor. I just haven't seen anything that's blown me away.
Here's the scene that I feel like was foreshadowed before, where she is now having to face her fear of him as the Hulk. Why does she... Oh, I know why she fears him. I just got it. I just made the connection. The reason why her character fears his character is because she is a character that does not rely on emotion. The way she reacts to things, even her fighting stance, is totally unemotional. Yeah. It's just agile and response and quick and cold calculating.
Yep.
And he is an entirely emotional character when it comes to his fighting style.
When they fall through the floor, there are markings on the floor that are referring to something else, but there are markings on the floor that say "contents under pressure" and little arrows that just so happen to be pointing to Banner.
That's fantastic. But yeah, like, so going along with my little thing my little fan theory that you said is not actually a theory,
sure.
that their powers are parallels to their character relationships. That's one where I think it works, because in the way that he fights, it's all about brutality and emotion. It's about being as angry as he possibly can and smashing things. And for her, it's about being agile and quick and calculating and having no emotion so that she isn't affected by the things that are happening to and around her. However, he is so emotional that he scares her. He makes her afraid, which she isn't used to feeling.
Right. But it's not about your fan theory. That's about characterization.
Right. It is.
It's not about their
character.
powers.
No. But I'm saying that the representation of the way that they fight is a parallel to the way they interact as characters.
Sure. Not that she has an issue with him as an individual, but he is kind of an anomaly to her.
And she's distant from him. She keeps her distance. We don't have any scenes where they're just hanging out alone together.
This moment right here,
except for the first
is
one,
shot like a horror movie.
It is.
All of this stuff right here with her walking through, and then when he appears and screams, that right there,
which Joss knows all about.
Well,
right?
Yeah, he he has ostensibly been the showrunner for 2 quote-unquote horror TV series.
There are some episodes of Buffy that are pretty freaky.
And he
not
directed
a lot, but there are a couple of them that are
some of which he directed himself. That's true.
Are pretty famous for being creepy episodes, so unsettling.
Oh, this maybe is my favorite fight in the entire movie.
You think so?
Yeah, maybe Thor versus the Hulk.
Yeah.
If only because when I was a kid, I had a comic book that was part of a series of Marvel comic books that were called something like the What If series. They were just basically an excuse for the Marvel writers to just go out on a limb and say, what if this crazy canonical thing happened in the Marvel universe? How would it play out? And the issue that I had was, what if the Hulk went really crazy, or something like that? Or what if the Hulk fought all of the Marvel superheroes? And basically how the comic book plays out is that Hulk kills everybody. He kills everybody.
Oh, dear.
And the only one who can bring down the Hulk, the only one, is Thor. Thor is the only one strong enough to bring down the Hulk. And that's what came to mind when I saw this the first time in the theater. And I was like, oh my God, yes.
Oh,
Thor is fighting the Hulk. This is going to be good.
They're going to fight. Yeah, it's cool.
Because I think Thor, they kind of allude to it in this too. I think Thor is stronger than the Hulk. I think he is.
Well, there's that moment, I don't know if we already passed it, where he's holding up his arm and he's able to push him off.
And I don't know that this has to do with strength so much as this moment right here. I don't know if it has to do with strength so much as lore, like the magic or whatever.
Yeah.
But Thor is the only one who can pick up Mjolnir, which is his hammer. So when Hulk can't even move it, then if it's based on raw strength alone, then yes, obviously Thor comes out on top. But I don't know if it works that way. I think it's probably magical. What
if he throws the hammer and someone catches it? Is that?
Well, he just did. That's what just happened.
Oh, and it went straight to the ground?
Yes, Thor caught it and it just fell to the ground, and the Hulk caught it and it fell to the ground, and the Hulk tried to pick it up, but he couldn't move it. So
Coulson.
Oh, Coulson, no. He's getting into the storage locker, which Captain America broke into earlier, or he broke into one of them, and ended up finding the weapons that were part of the whole Phase 2,
right? Which we haven't
weaponizing of the Tesseract.
We talked about very briefly, but I feel like we need to talk about it before, because there's I guess it's a fan theory again, but not mine. That deals with the Phase 2 stuff, where Phase 1 we talked about is literally in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is literally the title for this grouping of movies. And Phase 2 is literally the title of the second grouping of movies.
The ones that we're in right now.
The ones we're in right now, where the only one we have left is the new Avengers.
Right.
In this world, in S.H.I.E.L.D., Phase 1 is means Nick Fury's Avengers initiative.
Right.
His plan to get a group of people together as a response team. I love Thor just bashing.
You mean the Hulk?
I'm sorry. Yes, the Hulk just bashing this plane to
grabbing
pieces.
his seat as it's ejected
and then throwing him.
That little
and then
parachute.
Like the anticlimactic, parachute
I
popping.
promise you, there is poop in that pilot's pants. He has pooped himself.
Anyways, though, so the Phase 2 in this world here in S.H.I.E.L.D. it refers to them using the Tesseract to create weapons of mass destruction.
Yes. To
counteract the alien threats and possibly even superhuman threats.
Fury blames the Phase 2
on Thor.
Thing on Thor, saying that until Thor showed up and the Destroyer from the first Thor movie showed up and leveled that town, they didn't know that there were aliens. And Thor was basically the arrival of Thor and all the things that came with that movie showed S.H.I.E.L.D. and showed Fury and everybody that not only, and I think in his words he says they were hilariously outgunned.
Yeah.
Like massively hilariously outgunned by aliens.
Yeah.
So
so
it is, he blames Thor, passes the buck and says it's Thor's fault we're doing this, but
so the idea that I saw, the fan, I guess it was in a couple articles I was reading, some people were talking about it, where their idea, and now these were mostly articles written before we were really in Phase 2, in reality, in real time, like in the cinematic universe.
Right.
And the ideas that were going around was that Phase 2 was going to deal with the World Security what's it called? The World Security Council, with them trying to maybe put controls on the superheroes, on the Avengers and other superheroes, that they were going to possibly even use some of these weapons, the stuff that they got from Hydra back in the Captain America movies, and just other things they've created, maybe or gotten from alien technology. And they were going to use them to start controlling the superheroes, which the thing is, there are some lines in this movie where they talk about having to deal with superhuman people, and it just makes me think of X-Men a little bit. And you also were talking about the Civil War.
It's a Marvel comic book event, as they call it, but it was a series of books that was just, wide stretching and went all across the Marvel universe in the comic books. And,
what Fury said is, he said the world's filling up with people who can't be matched, who can't be controlled. And then it pans to Stark. And I guess I get this hint of X-Men in there, where it's this vague foreshadowing of perhaps a time where we're going to put some kind of regulation on our superheroes, which would go in line with this fan theory thing about Phase 2 actually being about that.
Right.
However, we haven't really seen it in Phase 2, and all we have left is one movie, which I don't think, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be about that.
I'm not sure. I don't know what the new movie's going to be about. I know Ultron's in it. I know that apparently the Hulkbuster Iron Man suit is going to be in it, so that means that Hulk is going to go crazy and they have to fight him. Do you know anything about the Hulkbuster suit? Mm-mm. It's basically an Iron Man suit that's huge, and it's designed to fight the Hulk.
This version that we're watching did not show the spear going through his chest.
Oh, did it not?
Nope.
I think this might be the UK Blu-ray then.
Ah, is it? Okay. So in some versions, the spear doesn't go through it.
In the UK version of the Blu-ray, I believe it was censored for home video, and the spear doesn't go through his chest. But as I understood it, based on what you find online, the main reason that the producers had to petition for a PG-13 rating was because you could see the spear going through his chest, and they thought it was too violent. So, according to what I read online, in the United States, that is, they take away the blade bursting through his chest, and they just give you the sound effect, the gross sound effect, and then you cut to Thor's reaction inside the cage. But you can see it in the American Blu-ray. It's
right.
Still in the American Blu-ray, and I guess it's still in the American theatrical version. I believe it was also in the theatrical version in the UK, but when it went to home video in the UK, they cut it.
Interesting. I don't see why it's that big of a deal. I don't think it was that graphic. I mean, I do watch a lot of horror movies, so maybe I'm pretty desensitized, but
that's true. But I mean, it would be really, really strange to see movies that really should be PG-13 that just go with the R for like the one or two elements that happen to make them an R. Because if this movie was an R, they just let it be an R based on that one thing, it would be the weakest, weirdest R ever.
Yeah, it would.
You'd go see it and you'd be like, that was rated R? Why?
Totally pointless.
But, everyone knows the MPAA is
right.
Messed up.
I mean,
just irreparably jacked up.
Yeah. Didn't we watch a documentary on it?
This film is not yet rated as an excellent documentary about the corruption
was
behind
that
the
the one
scenes
where
at
the people
the
went
MPAA.
undercover and were like following them and stuff? It is messed up. The people who are allowed to make the decisions and how random they are and how
a lot of it
uneducated
seems,
for the topics they are.
A lot of it seems arbitrary, but then a lot of it seems really like racist and homophobic and like weirdly religiously slanted and all this kind of stuff that doesn't seem to really be about informing parents of the content of movies and more like pushing an agenda or something. It kind of has that stink to it. Great documentary though. A very, very, very good documentary. Highly recommended. I
love in a moment we just had a second ago where Coulson tells Loki he's not going to win, and he knows he's not going to win because he lacks conviction. And it's totally true, because Loki isn't really a bad guy. I mean, he's going to go back to being kind of a good guy in Dark World.
He's not really evil, which, you could argue that any great villain isn't not really evil. Like, what is evil?
Yes.
I don't think Loki's evil. He just has certain things that he wants, and the means by which he achieves those goals can be seen by some as less than good.
In modern media today, a perfect example of that is, of course, all of George R. R. Martin's stuff. That it's hard to find evil characters that are truly just evil.
Right. Everyone's got
Everyone's
got motivations that, if you spend long enough with the character, you come to understand their motivations.
Right. And the
whether
ones
or not
who
you agree
really
with them, but they're not just evil for evil's sake.
Right. And the only characters, like even when you think of Joffrey or something who the internet and the world loves to hate, even a character like that, in the end, you just sort of realize they're broken.
You pity him.
Yeah. You pity them. The feeling is that something's wrong with them, actually, that they're mentally, that there's a problem with them, and that it's not just black and white, evil or good, which is how it should be.
I guess I kind of. Do you like Loki as a character? Do you like Loki as a villain or as a character?
I'm certainly not one of those girls who's all about the
Tom Hiddleston.
What's the other one? Those girls
You're not a Tumblrite.
They also like Snape.
Oh,
right?
Alan
they like
Rickman.
Professor Snape. They pretend like he's attractive.
They pretend like he's attractive, but all they have to do is like go back almost, like 20, 30 years or something and see him in Die Hard, and he was smexy with that beard.
Okay, right,
Hans Gruber.
Totally.
Dapper as shit.
So I'm definitely not one of those girls. And if I was to decide, I'd be all Thor over Loki any day, but
you're much more about the Fabio
I like the
romance
Fabio
novel
thing.
cover type.
Well, I mean, that's your traditional 70s, 80s fantasy hero.
Sure.
So even let's look at, what are some great ones, like Arnold, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no, really though.
Sweetie, would you bang Arnold?
I don't think so.
But he's coming all the time. He's coming day and night.
Oh my God, that documentary. He has some problems. But if I was to have to decide between those two, then yeah, I'm more on the Thor side. But really, I mean, neither of them, and definitely not Loki. So, I get that the girls are all into like, oh, he's smart. It's the Doctor Who complex thing where they have the new cute Doctor Who guys, and all the teenage girls on the internet like them because he's kind of quirky,
it's the Tumblr
but
thing.
he's kind of not cute.
Well, they don't like the
and
new.
He's so smart.
I don't think they like the new Doctor because he's not a pasty.
He's not like
skinny
a pasty
guy.
Skinny with
he's
like a crooked nose, but otherwise attractive.
They went back to an old Doctor, and all the Tumblrites went,
what? So. But
I can't write /fic to this, but I'm gonna try.
I'm gonna try. Oh God.
Yeah.
We'll start off with them getting divorced.
Tom Hiddleston's attractiveness aside, and honestly, I think that he's an attractive man outside of the character of Loki.
Yeah, he's fine.
But a lot of those people just like him as Loki. Like they like.
Oh,
that.
the other.
And he's funny too. Like Tom Hiddleston's a really funny guy and really seems to be amiable and like just a nice guy.
Yeah.
He just seems to be that way. Like someone you'd want to hang out with.
The other guy they like is Cumberbatch. Yeah.
So
you can just pick them out. You can just like look at a lineup and be like, this one.
His attractiveness aside, what do you think of Loki as a character?
Loki as a character is whatever. I mean,
right?
Yeah, it's fine. I was pretty disappointed actually that he was the villain.
The villain
of
not
movie.
only Thor, but this movie, and then he's not really the villain of Thor 2 because he helps Thor And then the dark elves are like the real villain, but he kind of becomes a villain again at the end because he's Loki. Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed.
I was kind of disappointed about it because
I'm over Loki. I'm over it.
And I mean, I think the main reason I was disappointed about it is because of all the Marvel worlds that we've created, the Thor world is my least favorite of them, unfortunately. And
we just missed it, but we got the scene with Harry Dean Stanton, who is a security guard at
when Hulk falls through the roof.
Yeah, God bless Harry Dean Stanton, who just makes a little appearance in this movie and is just great.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate to tell you, son, but you've got a condition.
You've got a condition. I love.
He's so matter of fact about it. So, are you an alien? From outer space?
I love when in the deleted scene. I don't think it's too long and it's not very good.
Yeah, the deleted scene. But it starts strong, but it gets weird really fast.
But in the part where it's strong at the beginning of the deleted scene with him, he says something about. So, are you a what is it? Are you a little man that?
No, are you a big guy that gets little, or are you a little feller that blows up big sometimes?
The way he says it is just great, and the delivery is perfect. Again, unfortunately, here we are with Black Widow and Hawkeye.
This is our character development for them because it's.
I don't care that much.
You don't care, but if this wasn't in the movie, I think
it would be a problem.
It would be a problem.
It would be a problem.
You would notice it.
I would absolutely notice it, and see, there was the moment that I acted out for you earlier, where he said, "How many agents have I killed?"
No,
don't
even think about it.
Don't do it. It's the Hawkeye.
I do like there are a couple of good lines in this scene. The one where she says something really technical. She was like mental recalibration or something, and then she clarifies and says, "I hit you in the head really hard."
But that's really Whedon-y too.
Of course.
It's really Whedon-y. There's a lot of Whedon-y stuff, as there should be. They're here. They're the two of them. I don't know why. I just. Maybe it's him. I want to say it's him, not me.
Poor Jeremy Renner. Keep saying it. It's Jeremy Renner.
But I just don't. I don't fall for it.
He's boring, right?
He is.
I'm sorry.
I
feel bad saying that because he's totally serviceable in everything that he's done. I don't think he's bad in anything that he's ever done. He doesn't ruin anything. He's just a void to me. In everything I've seen him in, he's just good enough. Yeah, sure. Good. That's fine. Good job, Jeremy Renner. You didn't totally ruin it, but you didn't really elevate it either. I think he's got a good performance in him. I just don't think we've seen it yet.
There was a moment with her, though, that I tried to look up stuff before, and I think we already kind of covered it. But when she's talking to Loki, when Black Widow is talking to Loki, and she's trying to get information, and it's another one of those turnarounds. It's another one of those turnaround scenes where we think that she's getting, we think that he's the one who's interrogating her. He's the one who's making her feel emotional and upset, and in the end we realize that she's playing him,
right, and
that she's just trying to get information out of him, which she does. But in that scene he refers to all these things. He calls her, I'm trying to find it, he refers to the hospital fire, and he refers to calls her like Dreykov's daughter or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That.
Is that a real world reference?
Well, not that I could find. And I went online and I started digging into the depths of comic book fans on the internet and trying to find out if they knew what it was referring to. And as far as I could tell, Dreykov's daughter, Sao Paulo, and the hospital fire. And then, of course, she and Hawkeye later refer to Budapest as well,
which we get I think we get a little bit of in video. Like there's a little bit of video footage of them
Is
fighting
that from
together.
the very beginning?
Yes.
When Coulson is talking to her on the phone and he's saying
Yes.
that Hawkeye has been compromised.
Right. I think that the two of them fighting in that footage is from that Budapest event.
Where she's like, it's just like Budapest. And he's like, we remember Budapest very differently because they're aliens now. So... But yeah, these other instances in her life are referred to, which are clearly supposed to be dark things that she did that he's trying to make her feel bad about. And she pretends like she's affected, but she's not. But anyways, the comic book geeks on the internet let me know that after
God bless them.
God bless them and their like 30 plus years of reading Avengers comics and knowing everything there is to know about them, none of them seem to know what those were referring to. Those
really?
Instances were referring to.
They're just like whatever.
They think it's all made up by the Marvel universe, the cinematic universe. I do love her line that we passed way back then. I just found it in my notes. Her regimes fall every day. I tend not to weep over that. I'm Russian.
Referring, of course, to
the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 91. But yeah, there's so many little gems like that in this movie. Just all sorts of stuff.
The scene, going back to the story and how it doesn't really stand up to, a lot of scrutiny. A couple scenes ago, Captain America and Tony Stark were discussing Coulson's death in what was the prison room, but now the prison cell is gone, of course. And Stark thinks that Loki did what he did to anger the Avengers so that he could fight them publicly and win. So that was his motivation behind being caught and doing all this stuff. And he does this weird kind of logic leap thing in his mind, and he's kind of word vomit at the same time. And he basically comes to the conclusion that Loki will be using Stark Tower because Loki's vain, and he wants
everyone.
He wants a monument built.
No,
to him.
I
but
think
that's how he comes to it.
I think it's that he's doing it maybe as a poke at Tony Stark or as a poke at the Avengers, because it's like, look, I can do it on top of your tower.
And that would be fine. I don't think it's explained that well. No. I think if they need,
it's basing it off of stuff that we didn't get the context for.
Right.
Like I don't think
the proper context is there. Now, if the context is emotional like that, like you say, and he actually wants to, take a stab at Tony Stark and poke at him a little bit because Loki's prone to do that, and I guess that works on that level. That's fine, but it was also established earlier that Stark Tower is self-sufficient and is running off of the arc reactor. Now, if Loki needed that self-sufficient power source to do something with the Tesseract, which is also its own self-sufficient power source, that could be another story element that.
But you're having to dig so deep to try and find some meaning for why this happened.
Exactly, because
that means that it was poorly written.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, the correct context has not been established and structured so that the audience can understand why it is that Tony Stark ultimately comes to the right conclusion, which is, oh, he's going to be at Stark Tower, better go home, and he does, and there he is.
And I don't I don't think that it's that Joss is bad at writing stories, because I don't think he is. I think he does when he is writing something where he's trying to show off the story, show off the plot even specifically. Like, I think he does a great job with it, but this is not one of those cases. This was a case where, what do people care about? They care about these characters. They want to see Iron Man say funny things. They want to see the Hork speak the Hork? Who is the Hork? They want to see Thor speak really eloquently.
This is a really good scene of dialogue right
and
here.
Then have someone, smash into them and just disturb his Shakespearean dialogue that he's flaunting, right? Like, that's what they want to see happen, and that's what Whedon gives them. He gives the audience the characters that they want. I love this line
about the performance.
Yeah, where he's trying
performance issues, 1 out of 5
to turn Tony with the scepter, but it doesn't work for some reason because of the arc reactor.
The whole scene of dialogue right there was really good.
Dialogue is always good in this movie, and it's even better with Tony Stark.
It better be. Yeah, exactly. That's. I think that's really what makes this movie so rewatchable. And, you know, it's not that the action's not good, because it's great. And when you get to see those when they really get into this final battle that's about to start up, actually, like right now is when it really starts. And you get to see all the little pairings that are done.
Yes,
and
all
how
the
all
little
the
fight
characters
scenes.
work
And you're
together.
like, oh, look, now they're fighting together.
It's like a series of miniature fight scenes where you get like Captain America working with Black Widow, and then Black Widow and Hawkeye, and then Hawkeye's off by
where
himself.
Iron Man shoots his laser bolt off of Captain
my God,
America's
it's
shield,
so
and it
awesome.
ricochets off and hits somebody.
Like that's I'm not like a
it's so,
I'm not
so
like a
awesome.
again, I'm not a huge comic book geek, I would say. Like, I'm not way into it, but when I see Iron Man shooting his repulsor cannons and reflecting them off of Captain America's shield and beating the Centauri, I just transform into this creature
that I'm married to. Yeah, and anytime this battle happens, by this point, I don't care. I don't care about the Chitauri or whatever, wherever they're from. I don't care that the Tesseract is a MacGuffin.
I believe they're from nowhere. I think that's what was said earlier, is that they don't have a home planet.
Oh, okay. I thought you were referring to nowhere as in like the fictional.
This could be
Nowhere.
This could be part of their motivations, is that they don't have a home planet, so they're, with Loki's help, they're taking over Earth so that they can have a home planet.
I read something about them liking to take away freedom. Something about that.
Do they?
Which is
just as
really
people,
good as for a motivation for them to be part of World War II. So, gotta stop freedom.
This actress right here that plays the waitress looking through the window, her character's name is Beth. I believe the actress's name is Ashley Johnson, and she looked so familiar to me, and I could not like pin down where I saw her from, and I could have sworn that she was in Annie. Like, do you remember the old Annie movie from like the 80s, I guess?
Yeah, vaguely.
And I'm half right. She's from the shitty sequel. Like, it's a direct-to-video shitty sequel to that Annie movie.
I'm sorry for you that you know that.
She also plays
you.
the voice of Ellie in The Last of Us, which is a great
That's
game.
Cool.
And she does a great job with that.
That's super cool.
But I thought it was, I wanted to say it was Annie that I knew her best from, but when I looked her up, I really couldn't find anything. I don't know. I guess she just has a memorable face. I kept thinking of like Curly Sue, like that old John Hughes movie, and I looked up the girl from Curly Sue, and it wasn't her. And who else did I think of? I thought of, I guess Annie was the other one.
She has a deleted scene with Captain America, and it's whatever.
Is it? Is it just whatever?
Captain, I think some Captain's storyline, my favorite thing about his storyline is the whole man out of his time thing, where he's displaced because he's been asleep for all these years. And you've told me before that in the comics they don't really go into that a lot, which is surprising to me because
I don't, not that I've read. Like they don't
just what you have heard about them then?
Well,
not that you've read in the Captain America comics. Okay.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Not that I've read. I don't think nothing that I've read in the Captain America comics, especially like the Golden Age ones, really have anything to do with fish out of water or anything like that. Like, I guess because the original Captain America comics really were published so close after the actual events of World War II that, you know, that storyline wasn't necessary. But I don't know. It always feels like he gets unthawed and he's jumping right into the action, like right away.
And I love all that stuff. I love it so much, and I love that in Winter Soldier that we get to explore it. And
he's got his little notebook that's got like Star Wars / Trek in it.
Yep.
And, you know, it's good stuff.
By this point in the movie, I am always I'm just done. Like, I just sit there and I can't do anything but just stare and just watch them beat stuff up. So to keep myself from doing that, I'm going to go back in my notes and give you some information that you really don't want to hear about. Are you ready for it?
Okay.
No, I mean, you do want to hear about it.
Oh, okay.
Except that
I thought you were going to say something that's going to make me sad.
No, it's not going to make you sad. Well, it might make you sad about the world.
Okay.
So I was trying to look up stuff. And at the beginning of the movie, when we're at the facility, the SHIELD facility, where the first scene starts, they've got a sign that says Joint Dark Energy Mission, Western Division, Project Pegasus, NASA Space Radiation Facility, SHIELD Accelerator Test Facility. Okay?
It's a mouthful.
Right, it is. But that's what the sign says. And I was like, the only thing that stands out to me as something that could be a reference is the Project Pegasus. So I looked it up. And in the Marvel universe, Project Pegasus stands for Potential Energy Group Alternate Sources United States.
Because everything is an acronym.
Yes.
Okay.
But so it has to do with, like, the reason it's there on the sign is it's about the Tesseract, and it's about energy. However, it's probably also a reference to teleportation and teleporting specifically to alternate timelines, which makes sense because the Tesseract does that. The Tesseract teleports us to alternate universes or opens portals to other places in space or something like that. I don't know.
Well, whatever they're doing right now.
Whatever this is. I don't know if this is another universe we're teleporting or portaling to or whatever, but you can go other places that you aren't.
Wow.
I'm trying to make it
eloquent.
work. Thank you. So
go buy a car, because with it you can go to places that you aren't at currently.
I don't want to say the wrong thing and be wrong. I don't know if it can teleport you to alternate dimensions. I don't know what this portal is showing us right now, but it's teleportation, okay? Project Pegasus in the real world. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
Starting in the late 60s, a Seattle attorney named Andrew Basiago, maybe. He claims that between the ages of 7 and 12 years old, the government used him to travel back in time to alternative timelines repeatedly under the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency and their special project titled Project Pegasus. So in the world, Project Pegasus is known as this supposed secret government project that's mission is to study the effects of time travel on children and to relay info about the past and future events of the universe.
Oh my God.
Okay? And it's all based on this belief that the government has a teleportation and time machine, that the science is based off of some of Nikola Tesla's papers found in his apartment after his death. And so this guy and other people, like not just this one crazy guy, but like other people too, who some of them are descendants of like one of them was a descent. It's like a niece or something of one of our presidents, past presidents, or something like that. So not just random people, but political figures and government figures and stuff too, claim that this is a real project.
That's crazy.
Okay, and this guy specifically. Basiago claims to be in a photo from the Gettysburg Address. There's a picture that he says is him. And that he went to Mars in the 1980s as an ambassador to the Martian civilization. And the people who went with him to Mars included a bunch of other political figures and stuff. But one of them was named Barry Soetoro, who now goes by the name Barack Obama.
Is this a conspiracy theory?
I guess so. This guy is for real. He gives lectures to thousands of people and stuff.
Okay.
And he claims that Barack Obama went to Mars with him as a child. He's running for president in 2016.
What?
Under the banner A Time for Truth.
Oh my God.
And he's trying to expose the government's long-running time travel exploits.
Oh my God.
Anyways, that's what Project Pegasus is in reality.
Okay, let's talk about the Avengers. One of the things I wanted to say about this final climactic battle is that producer Kevin Feige praised the film Transformers: Dark of the Moon, which came out before this, for its high level of, quote, awesomeness and scale. I believe he actually said, how do you pronounce that? Zomg? Z-O-M-G? That it's an internet thing?
Sure.
awesomeness, okay, and scale, and said we're working to try to outdo that when he was talking about the Avengers. The Avengers has since been criticized by some for having a surprisingly similar climactic final action scene as Transformers Dark of the Moon. In fact, the whole plot about like a laser being shot into the sky that opens up a portal where an enemy from a different, end of the universe comes to fight, including things that look like these big leviathans that that the Hulk just took down. Some of the screen caps, the comparison screen caps, are uncanny. Like it's ridiculous. Like if you don't know one or both of these films really, really well, you wouldn't be able to pick them apart because they look so similar. The final action scenes.
Wow.
I've never seen the Transformers.
I do my best not to watch the Transformers.
I got to protect
movies,
my head, and that's just I can't afford to lose that many brain cells.
Oh, we're assembled. Look at us.
Yes, we are. Did they do the cool shot? I think they did. The nice 360 shot around the team as, they mug for the camera and pose. I think that's going to go down as one of the most iconic shots in all of movies ever. It's pretty great. But yeah, that's fine. I mean, if they ripped off Transformers, who cares? This is a better movie than that anyway. I can say that without having seen Transformers. I know you shouldn't do that, but fuck it. It's Transformers.
I'm really, really pretty certain that your opinion would not change after viewing the movie.
Oh no, I'm almost positive. But who knows? Stranger things have happened.
I think you've said this before, and I think it's totally true that Hulk steals the movie here.
Oh yes, he does, and not just because he's so awesome in this last action scene, and he really, really gets to go crazy. Like they managed to capture how unhinged the Hulk is, I think, in a really great way in this movie. And I don't think it's something that they've really been able to do so far. I don't think Ang Lee's Hulk really captures how unhinged, that creature should be.
Yeah.
Even the Incredible Hulk, which is part of this Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't think it quite gets there. I'm one of the few that actually does kind of like that Hulk movie. I think it's actually a pretty good movie. It's not actually my least favorite Marvel movie. I like Thor. I like the Thor movies less than the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, actually. I would agree with that. Well, I think just the Hulk movie is just a better movie.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's simple. I like Edward Norton's performance.
It's more sound than.
But it still doesn't get the Hulk quite like this movie gets the Hulk. And he does kind of steal the movie in no small part due to Mark Ruffalo's performance, which is, I mean, he is Bruce Banner. That's it. No offense to Bill Bixby, rest in peace. You were wonderful. And Lou Ferrigno, who actually contributed some of his voice to the Hulk's voice in this, which is great. Going back to Pumping Iron, the documentary.
Why are we going back to
No, that's weird. Lou Ferrigno's in it. He's a big part of that movie.
I love some of the things I love in this whole battle sequence. I love that Hawkeye does not look at the things he's shooting at. He always looks at the next thing he's going to shoot at. Like he always he'll look at something and then he'll turn to look at the next thing and he'll shoot at the thing he was looking at before.
Has he run out of arrows yet?
No, not yet, I don't think. But that's also awesome that he does that.
It's great. It's despite the fact that that Iron Man refers to him as Legolas, he does not have a magic quiver full of infinite arrows, automatically refilling arrows that never run out. He actually runs out and has to take one of his arrows back and uses it to get out of the situation he's in.
Yep.
Which is cool. I like that a lot. I really appreciate that.
I think it's funny that they reference Legolas in a movie.
Well, Iron Man refers to 3 movies within this movie. He calls Loki Reindeer Games.
I don't get it.
Well,
I mean, I get
it's a Ben Affleck movie.
The horn thing.
Well, that's why, because he looks kind of like a deer or whatever. But he calls Loki Reindeer Games because of his helmet, which is a movie starring Ben Affleck. And then he calls Thor Point Break because he kind of looks like Patrick Swayze in Point Break.
Okay.
And then, of course, he refers to Hawkeye as Legolas.
He does, and I think it's funny that he refers to Hawkeye as Legolas, and one of the things where we're applauding this movie for is Hawkeye running out of arrows as compared to Legolas, who
never
runs out of arrows.
Never at all in the entire
I can't.
trilogy.
I mean, it's a long trilogy, and I haven't watched it in its completion in.
Well, he's in the Hobbit movies
years,
too. Does he run it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, has he? Why?
I say unfortunately.
Let's not get into
I say unfortunately, as I have to let it be known that I am a huge Legolas fan. But
you are. Some have criticized Jeremy Renner for a couple of things. He was actually trained by Olympic archers for this performance.
that's cool.
It is cool. However, his performance with the bow has been criticized by other archers as being not good. They say his form is awful.
You know who I heard, speaking of the same thing about archers criticizing movie archers, you know, surprisingly, who I heard some archers have said did a good job in film, in Hunger Games.
There was yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was an article
what's her name?
that came
Jennifer
out,
Lawrence, that she did a good job, they said.
I saw 3 movies compared, 3 archers in 3 different films compared in some article on some movie site, and they compared Hawkeye from the Avengers, Katniss from the Hunger Games, and Merida from Brave. And of the 3, they said Hawkeye was the worst. Mm-hmm. Not only is he the worst, but he has 2 arm guards on, 2 arm protectors on.
Why?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, because the professional archers that see him with those arm guards, they say professional archers are good enough that they don't need one.
Yeah.
They're good enough that they don't hit their arm with the is it called a string? I'm sure there's a technical name for it.
I'm sure there's a technical
The
name.
string. The bowstring. They don't hit their arms with the bowstring. So the fact that he has 2 on just means that Jeremy Renner was a pussy? Maybe, I guess, unfortunately.
Were they trying to insinuate though that he's like ambidextrous with his archery?
Actually, yeah, he is shown to be ambidextrous in this movie.
Then I guess that's why they showed the 2 arm guards.
No, he's got 2 on 1 arm.
Oh.
he does shoot. I love it. I love how you just reacted. He does shoot.
It was making sense in my mind though, like in that way.
One for each arm.
Right,
okay,
like
I guess that
one
makes
on
sense.
each arm, so that, you know, maybe it's silly that he needs them at all, but like we're trying to get across the point that he's so good he can use either arm.
I'm sorry, let me clarify. Although he shoots ambidextrously in this movie, on his right arm, which means that he's primarily shooting left-handed, which I guess in the Thor movie, he only shoots left-handed, but in this movie, he shoots both right-handed and left-handed. Okay. On his right arm, he has 2 arm guards on 1 arm.
Thanks for clarifying. That's silly.
That's pretty hilarious.
I love Loki.
You made that a lot funnier than it is.
Loki's belittling look when he catches the arrow and he's like, please, and then he explodes. Yeah.
But going back to that article, Hawkeye was the worst. Katniss was the next best, but as far as the article is concerned, or according to the article rather, Merida, the way Pixar animated Merida to shoot her bow, is basically perfect form.
Right. I would be pretty disappointed if someone who is animating something could not draw perfect form.
Yeah, well,
you just look at pictures and you copy them and make it look like that.
Don't simplify it like that.
I
It's
know,
not
but
that
seriously
simple.
though, they're fantastic at what they do. They
I chalk it
emulate
up,
real
right.
life.
I chalk it up
impeccably well.
Right. I chalk it up to Pixar being Pixar, not that, you know, if you can't animate it, then
right.
you're
But
not
I think
doing
it's
your job.
I think it's kind of an unfair assessment to compare the skill of animators to replicate something in real life. That's their job, is to replicate things in real life, and Pixar is really good at doing that. When they when they want something to look like an apple, it looks exactly like an apple.
Yeah, I would rather chalk it up to Pixar being awesome.
Pixar is awesome. Yeah. I'm unfortunately Brave is not really awesome. This makes me really sad.
Not everything can be perfect and amazing forever, and they have sadly come out of their golden age, I think.
It's really sad.
It is really sad.
But anyways, though, yeah, I had heard that somewhere that Jennifer Lawrence actually did a pretty good job with whatever training
according
she
to that
got.
article, she better than Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Better than Hawkeye. So
we're about to get to the scene where Iron Man is. Previously, we had some foreshadowing where Cap calls Iron Man out and is like, "You'd never be the guy to make the self-sacrifice.
Hawkeye just ran out of arrows.
Good.
That's the moment.
Good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but go ahead.
He's like, I mean, it's not a good thing, but it's a good thing that. Anyway,
the movie's paying attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I'm not doing right now. So, Captain America and Iron Man. Captain America said something to Iron Man at one point when they were getting in each other's faces and they were going to put on their suits and go have a little fight.
You want to do this? Let's go. Let's go.
Right? When they were doing that, Captain called Iron Man out and was like, "You would never be the guy to lay down on a wire so the other guy could crawl over you." And, Iron Man makes some Iron Man-ish comment where he's like, "I cut the wire." And yeah, and it is true. He's our asshole. He's the guy who's he fights for himself. He's called out for that. And of course, that was all foreshadowing for this scene that we're about to get, where he's going to be the one to make the sacrifice and fly up into the
portal and explode the Chitauri mothership.
Couldn't Thor have done it?
Maybe.
And I mean, it's kind of his problem, isn't Loki's his brother?
I don't think Thor can actually fly, though. Like, he can't fly on his own.
But he could use the hammer and hold the hammer and also hold the missile. No?
I don't know.
He usually flies holding the hammer with, like, one hand.
Okay, what makes more sense from a character standpoint?
Oh, character standpoint, it's Iron Man.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is kind of his fault.
I mean, the Hulk could have jumped into the air and grabbed the nuke and thrown it into the portal if he is as awesome as the movie makes him out to be.
Or what was the comment Banner made at the beginning of the movie? They were talking about the Tesseract, and he's like, "What, does S.H.I.E.L.D. want me to eat it?" Like,
yeah, actually, that's a line that I had missed until recently. That's one of the lines I had missed.
Eat it or swallow it or something like that.
But yeah, the nuke is on its way to New York. Did we miss the shot where Iron Man reflects his repulsor cannon off of?
I think so.
Oh, that's a shame.
I think so. Yeah, I think we've missed all that because now we're in like desperate mode. We're not like everyone's getting like battered down. It's not like cool awesome mode anymore. We missed and we missed Loki and Hulk? Yes, my absolute favorite scene in the whole movie. We were talking about something less important. My absolute favorite scene in the whole movie when Thor and Hulk are fighting together and it's really cool, and like Hulk slams the metal down into the, what are those big things called? The big Leviathans?
Leviathan, yeah.
And he slams the metal down into the Leviathan's back, and Thor hammers it in with Mjolnir, and then they crash into the building, and Thor's got this look like, yeah, and he's like smiling, and Hulk just
punches him,
clobbers him across the room.
Hulk smash.
Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
We just got a shot of the New York skyline. Something interesting. The producers actually secured the rights from Sony, who owns Spider-Man, to put the Oscorp Tower from the Amazing Spider-Man films into the New York skyline for this movie.
That would have been cool.
But by the time permission came through, and it did come through, Sony said okay. By the time it came through, the skyline was already rendered, and they weren't going to go back just to put in the Oscorp Tower.
That's something we haven't talked about much. There was the moment with Pepper missing her phone call. But one thing we haven't talked about much is how awesome would it be to have Spider-Man in these movies? To have Spider-Man be an Avenger. Can you picture the dialogue between Tony Stark and Peter Parker?
Yeah,
it would be amazing. That?
I want Joss Whedon to be writing for Spider-Man.
Oh my God.
I mean, Spider-Man
that would be incredible.
The only superhero that he should be writing more than Spider-Man is like maybe Deadpool or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like put him on the snarkiest, smart-assiest, most sarcastic characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the Marvel universe.
I have these fantasies of the two of them. Like my fanfic worlds in my brain are like characters bantering with each other in really unimportant situations. And I'm just picturing Spider-Man like calling Tony Stark old and just like the horrible things they would say to each other.
Well, and making him feel insignificant
because he's younger and smart.
Younger and maybe not smarter, but younger and smart and capable like Tony Stark is, like from a scientific and engineering perspective. Yeah. I mean, you can see that dynamic, of course.
And then, like, the terrible things he would probably say to Thor, he would make so many horrible references. It would be beautiful. I really, really, really want them to get those rights.
It's never going to happen.
Couldn't they, like, collaborate and just become friends for a while and both make happy money together?
You were looking up something earlier about how Avi Arad said that he has no interest in getting Spider-Man into the Avengers movies. You just called a person an ass.
Well, it is. It's bullshit. I mean, it would make everybody more money, and isn't that all they actually care about anyways, is making more money?
I mean, yeah, it's money on the table.
They would make more money if they did it, and it's not like it's going to lessen the Spider-Man franchise to put him in another movie. Why would that lessen it?
No, it wouldn't. Well, I mean, Fox owns X-Men. Fox also owns Fantastic Four, so you can't have Fantastic Four or any of the X-Men in any of the Avengers movies, despite the fact that some X-Men have been Avengers and the Fantastic Four have been Avengers at various points throughout, the comic book history.
Speaking of X-Men, you've referred before to Tony Stark as the Wolverine of this Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He kind of is, but only in the sense that he kind of shines the brightest, I think, just personality wise and star power wise. What with Robert Downey Jr. playing him,
he's had the most movies too.
Yeah, he's had the most movies thus far. So when this came out, he had 2 Iron Man movies under his belt and had basically relaunched his entire career. Iron Man saved his career, and this comes out, and despite the fact that this movie does a really, really great job of balancing the ensemble and balancing the characters, he does shine pretty bright, and in some ways it does kind of feel like Iron Man 3 before Iron Man 3.
Well, we do get like the open. He's the
front
only one who
poster.
gets to have his girlfriend there.
Right, exactly.
Everybody else doesn't get to have their girlfriend there.
Stark Tower is featured prominently. He is central, really more central than any of the other characters, except for maybe.
Also, an awesome shot. This one right here.
Yeah, it's good. The sun coming in behind them. But yeah, he's very, very central to the plot. And I guess in a way it does kind of feel like as much an Iron Man sequel as it does a culmination of all of these movies coming together. I think it feels more like an Iron Man sequel than even maybe a Thor sequel, which if it's going to feel like any of them, it probably should feel like a Thor sequel. Right?
I don't know. I don't feel like it feels like an Iron Man sequel. I feel like maybe if there's a character that's more of a main character than the other characters, that it's maybe Tony Stark, but I don't even necessarily feel that way.
Yeah,
I feel like it's really balanced.
Like I said, I think it's only because his personality stands out.
And the only movies that I feel like you don't have to have seen anything to watch this, but like if you were only going to watch one, you should probably watch Thor, I guess, because it's the one that
I guess
introduces our main villain.
Oh, there's shitty sequel Annie.
What? Huh?
The shitty sequel Annie from Annie, a royal affair. Wait, a royal adventure from 1995, made for TV movie. You haven't seen that masterpiece?
Oh my god. There's also we haven't talked about either the Cosmic Cube thing. I had been confused about
the
that
Cosmic
before.
Cube is a comic book thing that they don't refer to in the movies, but the Tesseract is very similar, it appears, to what the Cosmic Cube is in the comic books, but then again, there's also a Tesseract in the comic books, so you did the research, please enlighten me.
I'm trying to find my research right now, but Yeah. So in the comic books, I guess the Tesseract was called the Cosmic Cube. I think they were calling it the Cosmic Cube. However, they didn't call it the Cosmic Cube in this movie because they wanted my opinion, like what I've decided from what I read, is that in this movie they didn't call it the Cosmic Cube because the Cosmic Cube has pretty specific connotations, like at least more so than the Tesseract, of what it can do and
right.
And they wanted to have the freedom to do with it what they wanted to, which in the end, in Thor the Dark World, it is revealed, because we saw here that Thor took it up to Asgard. He took the cube with him. And in Dark World, it's revealed that it's actually an infinity gem.
Right. Which
I have to assume is the same thing as or a similar thing to the Infinity Stone that is our MacGuffin in...
It's the same thing.
In Guardians of the Galaxy?
It's one of the Infinity Gems, of which there are like, I don't know how many. I'm going to get killed online for this. There are like 9. Am I right? Nerds, help me out. 9 Infinity Gems. But, they go into the Infinity Gauntlet, which Thanos eventually gets. And everyone's like, who's Thanos? Which, exactly, right? Even if you watch this movie, Thanos makes an appearance. No idea who. If you don't know who Thanos is, then you're just in the cold.
Yeah.
It's really just for the fans. But
he's the guy who's eventually going to try to get the Infinity Gauntlet, which needs to be powered by the Infinity Gems, of which the Tesseract is
and
one.
There's Stark Tower with only the A
thing
left.
From Guardians is.
There was Stark Tower with only the A left, signifying that it's going to be the Avengers Tower from the comic books.
Cool.
But yeah, so basically what's going to happen is what you said. Thanos is basically the big bad of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far. He's kind of being set up to be that.
Man, what a timeline to have a big bad that is hinted about for so many movies and so many years of our lives, like my real human, not cinematic life. And this big bad is being developed for years and years and years. That's so cool. I love that this works. I love that this exists. I'm a person who's really into fantasy series. I'm not really much of a one-shot read kind of girl. Like, I really like my very long and tedious book series. And this, to me, is just the epitome of a movie series, because we get all these little backstories in their own movies, and then we bring them together, and then like the culmination of that is just this huge world that we've been developing for years and years, and it's so cool. I love it. I loved it from the beginning, from the first hint that it was going to happen, and I still love it now. Ultimately, I just want them to keep doing it and keep not sucking.
They're gonna start sucking.
No, don't say that.
Everything has to come to an end. Every good thing ends. And eventually, these movies are going to get so overblown and so overloaded with their own lore that it's going to be impossible to watch any of them without a knowledge of 10, 15, 20
I'm okay
films.
with that.
I know you're okay with that, but when that happens and general audiences and
then
especially...
they're not, the quality will go down because the money won't be behind it.
Well, the money, yes. Well, and that's essentially what I'm getting at, is that when you can't get new audience members, because, 10 or I guess 10 years from now, if they're still working on this same cinematic universe,
it'll be a whole new generation of people.
That's going to be a whole new generation of children who are watching these superhero movies, who have to watch 15 or 20 films before they can go to the movie theater and see the newest Marvel movie. And that's just, that's kind of a problem that the comic book industry has been facing for some time now. And comic book sales are just always down. They're always lower and lower and lower and lower because of that exact problem. The barrier of entry, just the sheer volume of content that has come out, canonical content that has come out over the years since some of these characters debuted. Some of our most famous superheroes debuted in like the late 30s and in the 40s and stuff like that. Like Superman was like in the 30s, I think. And that's, who's going to go buy issue 1,000 of Superman to start reading comic books.
Right.
Who's going to do that? You yourself said that you are a fan of fantasy series.
And I'm a completionist. I go back to the beginning. That's my
Absolutely.
problem with Doctor Who.
Right.
That's why I can't watch it, is everyone's like, oh, you can watch New Who. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to watch New Who.
Fuck New Who.
Fuck New Who. I don't want to start randomly in this new age cool,
right.
Tumblr thing. I want to start at the beginning. And I don't want to watch
Baker,
that.
Tom Baker or bust, right?
Like I've tried to watch some of the really old Who stuff and I just can't get into it.
It's hard.
And so
you just accept it. You're like, I'm just not going to get into Doctor Who.
I'm just not going to be into it, because if I can't be into it from the beginning, then
I absolutely understand that mentality, and I'm afraid that that's where these movies are going to end up going. Is that in 10 years you're going to have 10-year-olds that have to watch like 20 films in order to be up to snuff.
But I feel like Guardians kind of showed us, though, that that's not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true, but Guardians is also playing into this cinematic universe.
It is, but it could be separate, and it would be okay if it was separate.
The cat is trying to sabotage this podcast at the very last minute. But yeah, they are going to start sucking. Whether or not that's the reason that they're going to start sucking, or it's just because that is the nature of all things, who knows? But
the nature of all things is that things start sucking.
Everything starts sucking. Everything starts sucking.
And there are no original ideas, right?
And there are no original ideas.
Oh, God, you're awful.
You hate. Is that too cynical for you?
Too cynical for me is a pretty.
But it has to be pretty cynical. But every time I espouse those kind of
it's too cynical
ideals.
for me about the things I love. When you're cynical about the rest of the things in the world, then I'm okay with that. But being cynical about the things I love. I mean, look, I say the same thing about even the fantasy series that I love all the time. I'm terrified Game of Thrones is going to start sucking. Not Game of Thrones. Well, yes, Game of Thrones. The TV show too. But also the novel series. I'm really scared they're going to get bad, because they've been going on for a long time, and usually things do.
You said yourself that the last one was kind of...
It wasn't, but it was...
meandery.
It was a little unfocused.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, the Charlene Harris series, I was talking about that earlier tonight, and the first 7 books were great, and then they just started getting awful.
Yeah.
And I see that happen a lot in long series, and it's not really surprising, and I don't believe that you're wrong. I just don't want you to be right.
Well, a little bit of trivia. According to Joss Whedon, the original cut of this movie was over 3 hours long.
Would have watched it.
Yeah, I would have too.
And it probably would have still loved it.
About 30 minutes of the excised footage is included on the Blu-ray, most of which revolves around Steve Rogers struggling to adjust to the modern world.
Yeah.
Chris Evans has since announced that these deleted scenes will be used for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And I don't...
Were they used specifically?
I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of that stuff in The Winter Soldier, and I feel like that was probably that's a dated quote.
The Peggy stuff was in Winter Soldier, and that's part of the deleted scenes. I don't remember if it's exactly though the same, because in one of the one I'm thinking of specifically is the one where he's looking through all of the files that he's been given about the soldiers who are dead now that he was with, and then he comes across her file and she's still alive, and he kind of looks at the phone like he's going to call, and in Winter Soldier he goes to see her.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't remember if that scene specifically is in it though.
Let's see. Anything else?
Oh, shawarma. We didn't talk about it.
Oh, well, it's coming up. Shawarma was actually kind of Robert Downey Jr.'s idea. He thought that when he comes to after delivering the nuke, that his dialogue should be a little bit snappier. So Joss Whedon wrote in a line about going to a shawarma place, which is actually influenced by Nicholas Brendon from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Mm-hmm. His audition for Buffy the Vampire Slayer involved him like ad-libbing something about, you guys feeling like shawarma? Let's go to shawarma. And Joss Whedon thought it was just the most hilarious thing, that shawarma is like the most hilarious food, and they were just on this wavelength. So he cast him in Buffy based on like the shawarma line. So he puts that in this movie.
That's beautiful.
And we're going to see in a minute that shawarma line where he says, "Oh, let's go. There's a shawarma place. I don't know what it is, but I want to try it. So let's go there after we're done with fighting and saving the world." And we get to see them sitting in silence, eating their stuff.
Fantastic. Now, what's really hilarious about shawarma is that you and I did not realize we have been eating shawarma for more than 4 years now.
That's right. In Japan, they call it kebabs, which is totally wrong. And
yeah.
It's stuffed inside a pita, so I guess you could also call it like a hero or something like that.
Yeah. That's what I thought it should be
shawarma
properly.
itself is like the meat on a vertical stick that's like roasted slowly over a day or so.
And it is
they shave it
super
off.
popular here.
So delicious.
Like all over the place. Every time you go to a traditional Japanese festival, there will be stalls selling what they call kebabs, and it's shawarma. And you see the huge meat on the stick and stuff, and then shaving it off. Like,
this is our shawarma scene.
I love how exhausted they are. I love it. I love they're just dead.
Chris Evans is putting his hand over his face because he's wearing a prosthetic jaw to cover up the fact that he has a beard because he was shooting Snowpiercer when they were called back to do this scene. But that's going to bring us to the end of this episode of the Popcorn Poops podcast. As always, you can find us on our website at www.popcornpoops.com. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, where you can leave us a rating and review. We'd really, really appreciate that. We still only have 2, and we would like more. We want some feedback on what we're doing. Tell us if you like us. Tell us if you don't. Both are okay.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Popcorn Poops. You can also like us on Facebook. Both of those places will give you information about new episodes coming up, drop hints about what movies we're planning on covering, and we try to make it a little bit fun, so go check that out. You can also find us individually on Twitter. I am at Dusty Cram Cram.
I'm at Jesse Casper.
And until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
We are the Popcorn Poops.